Woohoo! All right. Welcome, everyone. I've already had technical difficulties. I just love this. I mean, it's like, what the hell's going wrong? And I haven't even started the show yet. Can you hear and can you see me? That's my usual request. Hey, Charles, you just showed up. Welcome here. And can you hear me and see me? That's all I want to know because I was having microphone problems along with the other problems I was having. So I'm going to just double check while I'm waiting for you to say, yes, I can hear and see you. I will also mention that, oh, good. Lisa says can see and hear you. Okay, we're done then. All right. So today I'm going to talk about these three killer cops behind me. And I'm also going to talk about two more, Bobby Cutts and also the Golden State Killer, because all of them together show us how this actually works. Why are certain cops killers, or how do certain killers become cops? I mean, what is that altogether? Now, what I won't be doing is going into massive detail on each case. I may do separate cases later on, but this is about the whole general concept of, hey, aren't these guys here to protect us? And and yet they're like the most evil guys ever. I mean, how are they out there with a gun and a badge? And what do we do about that? So we're going to be talking about all of that. But before I start, this is the question for you, Martin. I was saying to Martin, he is going to be saying true or false on this next issue. Now, what's been happening recently is every once in a while, I talk about bullies on the internet, things people have said to me. I had a whole show on that, little piece of, not the whole show, a little piece on my last hangout about that, talking about how somebody came on and called me all kinds of names and said all kinds of kind of mean things. And I thought it was really funny. And so I was explaining to people how bullies work. And the response was almost overwhelmingly from females is, oh my God, Pat, don't take it to heart. We think you're wonderful. Your voice isn't that way. No, you don't talk too fast. Yes, I do. You're not old, even though he called you a granny. You know, everybody's like, oh, don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. Don't feel bad. And another woman wrote someplace else, I guess on some other video, you don't have to defend yourself, Pat. And I'm like, oh, come on, folks. I'm trying to explain things. I don't have a self-esteem problem. However, I think we do in this society have a self-esteem problem. And what's happening is that we've lost our strength in ourselves. And especially with all the things out there in the world, the internet and the bullying going on, that we're taking too many things to heart instead of saying, you know, dude, you're an ass. Boom, block. I'm still good. And that's what I was trying to explain to people. And here's my example. And this is why I asked you, Martin, about this. So let me go back and make sure I'm seeing the comments so I can see your response. So I play pickleball and I play table tennis. Now, when I play pickleball, I'm a good player. I'm not an expert player, but I'm not a beginner. I'm a pretty good player. And I'm out there, and some days just don't go as well as others. Or maybe I just have hit a bad shot here or there. And I go, crap, that sucked. Oh man. And then and women will say this, but on the pickleball court, men will do this more than women. It's okay. Don't worry about it. You're fine. I'm like, dude, I just want to yell at myself. You wouldn't say that to a guy, would you? You wouldn't say, oh no, it's okay to a guy. You just let him yell at himself. And I like to yell at myself. So I yell at myself when I'm on a pickleball court. The men are always coming up to me, oh, it's okay. It's okay. It's all right. You're playing well. And I'm like, oh, let me complain about myself because I'm trying to get into my head the mistakes I'm making. It's not that I'm not going to come back tomorrow. It's not that, I'm just talking to myself. And I'm not having a self-esteem issue. I'm just talking to myself. Funny thing, when I go over to the place where I play table tennis, I play with about 8 guys and no women. And they treat me as one of the guys. Now, here's what I'm asking you, Martin. Guys treat guys differently, right? So what happens in table tennis is I hit one off the table and my partner goes, you suck. And he goes, I want a new partner. And we all laugh. And I think it's funny. And I like being there because I can bitch at myself And the guys just go, yeah, you suck. But they all know I'm a very good table tennis player. So they want to be my partner, but we can all joke around. And so it's really interesting how at this one place, they treat me like a dude. And the other place, they treat me like a female. So the men over there are trying to protect my poor little feelings. And also on the internet, what I've noticed is mostly females are trying to protect my little feelings. And I'm like, what is it that we think we have to overprotect females? We don't tell females just buck up like the dudes. Why do women seem to have to need this kind of level of support over everything? I just find that really interesting. So I just thought, I was just asking Martin, do you see the difference between males and females in there? As far as how men treat men and how women treat women. I think men are much less cozy about, patting people on the back and telling them they're going to be okay, unless it's really serious. And women tend to really want to gather together and say, you're okay, you're okay, you're okay. Thank you, Martin. Martin says, true. So thank you, Martin. I just think that's an observation I made. And I'm just making it today because I have had these people just patting me all over the back thinking I'm really, really offended by these bullies on the internet. And I'm like, I've been out here for like 2 decades on television. I have been insulted. I would go with hundreds of times, but it might be thousands by now. I have had everything said to me that can be said to me. And if I get really upset by little things, I really am in the wrong place. But here's what I do get upset about, which is why I'm thank you. Red Rum says, people fussing makes things 10 times worse for me. Exactly. I'm like, let me bitch. Don't keep jumping in and going, oh, no. I'm like, stop it. Stop it. I'm with you, Red Rum. But here is my real issue. People miss the real issues. What's my real issue right now? How about YouTube demonetizing a good portion of my videos? They are demonetizing me one video after the other. My Hangouts, they have the same photo. I do a hangout with my friends here who are supporting me on Patreon. I don't show it's just me sitting here. I don't even show photos like I do behind me during a live session on Sunday. I just sit at my table and talk. I never show crime scene photos, and I don't show them here either. And I'm like, why would you demonetize me? What did I do? And so what they'll do is they'll monetize one of those videos, Hangouts, and they'll demonetize the next one, which makes no sense. And I've had some demonetized videos, which I'm like, I was on Nancy Grace for a decade and a half, and she was a super popular, the most popular CNN channel, and on HLN, she was on HLN, and she got massive advertising. And now I'm doing a crime show, which is way less volatile than Nancy Grace, and you're demonetizing me like by 50 to 60%, and it's getting worse by the day. So, guys, you can insult me all you want, say everything bad you want about me, do it. I don't care if you call me old. I don't care what you call me. What I really want you to do is support the channel because my advertising is going way down, and I do want something to support this bloody channel. So please go over to Patreon. Support me there. $3 a month. You can support the channel and keep this stuff going. For $7 a month, my best friends here, friends with Profiling with Pat Brown, can come and hang out with me every week. Please do that because I'm going to beg. I'll beg. I'll lower my self-esteem. This channel needs support because they're demonetizing me. And it's not even political. I don't get it. I mean, it's no political stuff here. Go figure. And maybe have to do with the big channels not wanting the little channels to, who knows what the issue is. So please go to Patreon. It's in there in the description. Click in. You'll find it. It's kind of low down now because I have a lot of links to things for this show above it. And in the middle, so just subscribe, please. Subscribe. You're hanging out here, visiting with me. Subscribe to the channel. Hit the like button. Share with people, and hit the bell so you get notifications. And a one-time help. Just buy my book, Only the Truth. $2.99. Great story. Helps the channel. Okay, that's that. Forever Young says, that's crazy, Pat. Is someone behind the demonetizing? I would say the big channels. What's happening, I think, a lot of times is the big channels are pressuring YouTube to push all the advertising toward them, and they have millions of people. So hey, millions of subscribers. so things get pushed that way. It's very frustrating that this is the same thing that's happened in the publishing business too. The top 5 publishers pretty much run everything. And if you get published with a small publisher, you can't even get reviews on your books at all. I mean, they won't review you. So all the like New York Times, Washington Post won't review your books if you're not with one of the big publishers. Very frustrating thing, but it's also reality. So it's the way things are. By the way, Emily was saying that she's going to listen to me while she does her chores. And I said, well, okay, that's okay. But could you come to a different address to do that? Like my address. and Emily says, lots of laughs, Pat. I'd happily come and do chores at your house if we could have coffee afterwards and I could pick your brain. I would go with that. I hate cleaning house. I do. I just so hate it. Anyway, let's get on to the show. So we have a lot of interesting characters here. Voice of Reason says there are several words that are not allowed on YouTube. Okay, I keep looking for those words. Do I say them? I think I said retarded once. That's probably just me in right there. And remember the old days when that just meant silly or ridiculous and wasn't an insult to people with mental disabilities? Oh gosh, yes. Trigger words bot picks up. And it's funny because the bot does always take my. You have a green dollar sign, and that means everything's good. And then all of a sudden it changes to yellow, which means we're like limiting, which means you're not getting any kind of income off of this. And then you can ask for a review from a human being. So you click on that and it goes to review, but who the heck is the reviewer? We're talking about YouTube, massive numbers of probably 19-year-olds sitting there going, I don't like this. Boom. I don't even know who it is. They never tell you why you didn't, your review said, I'm sorry, you still aren't appropriate for our advertisers and our community guidelines. And they never tell you why. Though, and some people, I thought it was to do with my homicide channel, homicide, murder. But people tell me they have the same problem with their animal channel. How many bad things can you say about your pet? I don't know. Suddenly Beautiful says, well, with my foul mouth, for sure, I'd have no monetized channel. Voice of Reason says, predators, pedophile. Yeah. That's why I'm really hoping Patreon is a good support for this channel, because I feel that in the future, I'm not going to have great support from advertising. And also I won't do Super Chat, which during this kind of show, Super Chat would be calling up and everybody going, I give you $10, I give you $5. And it just seems like it just creeps me out. It's like a bad auction type thing while I'm talking. And I want to be here for you guys. I want to do a show for you. I don't want to be going, selling stuff like constantly during the show. So I won't do that. So we shall see how things go. But anyway, to the show. And about 5 different creepy dudes. Really, 5 different creepy dudes. I'm going to start with one I didn't advertise because he's worth talking about. I'm going to go from the lesser horrible killers to the worst horrible killers and explain what the difference is on the way. So the first one I'm going to talk about is a dude named Bobby Cutts. Does anybody remember Bobby Cutts? Oh my God, Bobby Cutts. Now, Bobby Cutts, he was a law enforcement officer, and let me say, just kind of give you the quick background. Where's Bobby? Okay, before he became a police officer in 1998, he was accused of, keep this in mind, breaking into his girlfriend's home, and they only gave him disorderly conduct, and he got probation of 3 years. I'm not sure how he got to be a police officer after this, but he did. Now he's on the Canton police force. He was on for 7 years. But in 2003, he temporarily lost his job after his weapon was found in the possession of a drug dealer, which was his cousin. So somehow, I say the whole story I don't have is complete, but essentially he said his weapon went missing or stolen, ended up in under his cousin's mattress. It was a drug dealer. So anyway, they had a few issues with that. Now, he faced criminal charges. And the supervisors had alleged that he'd given the gun to a drug dealing cousin, but he was acquitted. And an arbitrator ordered Canton to rehire him with back pay. Oh my God. So this is setting up one of the issues we have with what happens sometimes with the police situations. Now, just to point out, there's many police officers in this world, and the majority of them are not killers. They're not psychopaths, and they're not bad police officers, but you get a few. And sometimes the problem is the hiring process. Sometimes the problem is the legal process. Well, Canton tried to get rid of the dude, but they wouldn't let him get rid of him. So they had to keep him on. Now, I just want to point out, by the way, I'm going to talk a little bit about this book while I'm here. This is, and I have it it's in the link below. This is written by Stacy Dittrich, who was in law enforcement for many years. She used to do Nancy Grace with me, and we became good friends over Nancy Grace in the sense that we both understood each other really well. I respected what she said on the show, and I really liked her. So when she did this book, which was called Murder Behind the Badge, Cops Who Kill. You'll notice up here it says forward by Pat Brown. Yeah, okay. So I did a forward for her book because I thought her book was really good. And by the way, I have been asked to do forwards for books before that I've refused because I'm like, yeah, this book sucks. I'm not supporting this. And here's a little secret for you guys, because people don't understand how things work. The majority of the time when people do forwards for books or give awards, it's because they get attention more so than that they're giving attention to the person that they're supposedly giving attention to. So you gotta be careful of that, because one day somebody wanted to give me an award for something. I realized they don't care about me. It's they want to do a party and they want everybody to pay attention to them. And this is also true with books. But the reason I did one for Stacy Dittrich is because I liked what Stacy Dittrich had to say. And I've always appreciated everything Stacy Dittrich had to do with her work. So really good stuff in here. And she wrote about Bobby Cutts in this book, and some really interesting stuff. So before we go into this book, so anyway, he's got all these, he's got some issues with being a police officer, that he's violating the law, and he's still a police officer. Now, meanwhile, what kind of dude is Bobby Cutts? Well, apparently, it's really hard to keep track of, so I might have it wrong because it's hard to keep track of. He had like 4 babies with like 4 different women, and one was on the way, but the woman aborted that child. And he was married at the time he was seeing this woman, who was the woman that was murdered. She had his child. He's 2 years old here. This is the 2-year-old child. And she was pregnant at the time that she was murdered by Bobby Cutts. She was pregnant with his little sister, 9 months pregnant. Okay. So anyway, she vanishes from her home. And her mommy calls up into police and says, "Oh my God, she's gone missing." And it's kind of interesting. I just want to read the 911 call from the mom, just because in other shows I've talked about how the emergency call and the 911 call, or wherever you are, 111 call, if you're from another country, the first thing they say is the most important. The second thing they say is the second most important. And a lot of times when people have killed their own children or whoever they've killed off, their first thing isn't the right thing that you would think they would say. They say something like, "I just got home," because I want you to know they weren't there when the person was killed. Now here's from the mother, and listen to what she says. "What's your emergency?" "We need help at Essex Avenue. My daughter was 9 months pregnant and she's gone." That's what she wants you to know. She wants you to be there at the house. Her daughter's missing, and she's right there. "Please, the 2-year-old is home alone. The house is trash." She's telling exactly what has happened. So anyway, she says, and then, which is interesting, mommy says, "Okay, can you please call Officer Bobby Cutts? He's a Canton police officer. His son is here alone." Now, mind you, the father of this little boy's been home for over 24 hours by himself in the house. And so the grandmother is saying, "Oh my God, call his daddy and get him over here." So anyway, at a certain point in time, they figure out daddy done did her. So, so daddy, the police officer did kill his wife. And one of the interesting things about this is when we talk about police officers killing people, and we look at them killing their wives or girlfriends, because this is a girlfriend, not a wife, because he has a wife. This is a girlfriend. I'll go into that in a minute. When we look at other cases, like the Scott Peterson case, I'm just going to blank on other names. Other men who've killed their wives, they aren't police officers. They've killed their wives. They've killed their girlfriends because they're pregnant and don't want to pay child support. They've killed their whole families. They're not police officers. So this is a case of a man who happens to be a police officer who has killed his girlfriend because she was in his way. I've always said psychopaths kill you because you're either useful or in the way. Well, when she was his girlfriend, she was useful. When she starting to argue about things with him, she became in the way. And when he had to pay child support, she was 9 months pregnant. He was about to have to pay child support for yet another kid. That dude was underwater with the payments. I mean, he had 3 others or 4 others. I can't remember. He's got lots of kiddies. And he's paying child support to everybody. And he is in serious financial trouble. So getting rid of her gets rid of a problem because now she can't have the next kid. So, the police aspect is really unimportant in the sense that it has nothing to do with him being a police officer. Now, should he have been a police officer? Well, there is kind of evidence that he sucked as a police officer because he already had issues with breaking into his ex-girlfriend's house. He already was found to have actually given a gun to a drug dealer. Why was he on the police force? Well, he was because somehow he got in and then they couldn't get him out. So they were trying, but they couldn't get him out. Now I want to read to you what happened during the trial and what he said, because it's really, really interesting. Okay, where is it? Okay, so during the trial, I keep talking to you about how defense attorneys will create the story for you. So anyway, I forgot to mention this. Okay, wait a minute. Forgot to mention this. Okay, so see this girl on the right, Maisha or something like that. Anyway, that's a friend of his, like a kind of a squirrely friend of his. So anyway, he shows up at her house with the body of his wife in the back of his truck. And he's like, I got this problem. I know I was bringing over to watch my son, but I'm sorry, not his wife, his girlfriend. I can't keep up. There's too many women. I got my girlfriend in the back, So she's like, what? And he goes, yeah, shit happens. And is that one of those words that gets me demonetized? Okay, anyway, shit happens. And so she helps him go get rid of the body. I wrote this article once because this is so true. You know how there's a sticker, I used to put it on my computer, and it was like, good friends help you move. Best friends help you move bodies. And I'm like, and I had that as a joke. But I wrote this really short little thing on my blog once. It was called When You Need a Friend to Move a Body. I am feeling quite jealous of Drew Peterson and Bobby Cutts. I can't think of a single friend who would help me dispose of a corpse, especially one that happened to be related to me. Now, we don't know why Drew Peterson's alleged helper tried to commit suicide the day after it was claimed. He helped Drew move one rather large barrel out of his house the day after his wife, Stacy, went missing. A very heavy barrel. Maybe this alleged incident is unrelated to Stacy's disappearance. But if it does turn out that Drew's wife was in the container, I want to know why I have no friends that would be this helpful in my time of need. Why would Drew have these friends and Bobby Cutts have these friends and not me? Is it because Peterson and Cutts are fun guys, or because everyone trusts the cop and doesn't ask what's in the barrel or the bundle? Is it a male thing to be able to get this very supportive friends? Say, Drew, it's awfully kind of you to pack up all these old clothes and give to the poor. Kind of heavy stuff. Winter coats? Well, I hope the homeless find the stuff. Here's a shovel back, Drew. Say, Bobby, this is a beautiful park. Too bad we have to cart along a third party to ruin the mood. Oh, we're leaving her in the brush. Cool. If there are any of you folks out there who know the meaning of being a best friend, send me an email. I just might need your help one day when I decide to take care of business. Thanks. So that's one thing I wrote a long time ago about the Bobby Cutts case, because I'm like, what the heck are you doing helping Bobby Cutts bury bodies? But she obviously didn't have too much. I think he gave her like $100. I'm like, geez, you're cheap. No, go for $1,000. Go for $2,000. $100. Not really worth it. Anyway, so they get to court. They go to court because he's looking guilty as hell. Because, well, he is guilty as hell. And Ivani admits to the police he did it. So he takes the police to where the body is buried. But then when he gets in court, he tells this story. And I keep talking about how defense attorneys, in my opinion, there ought to be like a video camera in the room, that if the defense attorney makes up a story for you and then you use that story in court, that defense attorney should go to prison as an accomplice. I don't have a problem with the defense attorney providing the best defense. I have a problem with the defense attorney providing a fake defense and lies, and knowing it's a lie tells the defendant to say those lies. I think that attorney should go to prison as an accomplice after the fact. So anyway, hear about Bobby. So Bobby, Bobby says, after leaving Champ's bar the night of June 13th, Bobby drove over to Stephanie Hawthorne. That's not the girl that was killed, by the way. No, I just blanked on her name. Oh my God, I feel bad. I blanked on her name. Hold on a second. I'm going to feel really bad because I don't like victims not to get their due in their name, and I just blanked on her name. So I'm gonna Google. I'm going to put in Bobby Cutts victim because I just blanked on her name. I didn't write down. Jesse Davis. Okay. This was not Jesse Davis's house. Bobby drove to Stephanie Hawthorne's house, his lover. So he's got one over here. He's got one over there. The dude is a womanizer and a half. Player if you've ever seen a player. And a liar and a cheat. And he's also married, by the way. He fell asleep there, waking up at 2 a.m. and making the 10-minute drive to his home, which I'm not sure he shared with his wife. But that's kind of missing. I don't know where's the wife. Bobby even claimed that Stephanie called him while he was on his way home. Anyway, since Bobby was scheduled to pick Blake up before 6 a.m., he set his alarm for 5:30, but because Jesse's house was only 10 minutes away. Waking up early at 5:20, he went to Jesse's house, only to find that she didn't have Blake awake and ready to go. He claimed that when he walked into her bedroom, she was sitting on the floor. I kept telling her to hurry up, but she wouldn't listen. She kept saying she was too tired to do anything. Dude, she's 9 months pregnant with your baby. Oh, you think that might have something to do with her energy level? I told her I could be back in my bed asleep by now. Well, there's empathy for you. Not. Because psychopaths don't have empathy. And yes, Bobby Cutts, I'm calling you a psychopath right here and there. Okay, let me rephrase that because I can get in trouble for that. I will say you are behaving like a psychopath. Okay. And I'm not a psychiatrist, so I cannot actually diagnose you on from what I've read and from a distance. I should have you in my, since I'm not a psychiatrist, I can't even have you nearby. So I will just say your behaviors are highly reminiscent of a psychopath. Okay. So anyway, Jesse responded by telling Bobby that if he wasn't out drinking all hours of the night, he wouldn't be so tired. Well, there's a point. After continuing to verbally battle with Jesse, Bobby stated that he had had enough and said he was leaving. He told Jesse he would pick Blake up for the weekend, and he could make other arrangements for him that morning. Angry, Jesse stood in front of Bobby to prevent him from leaving the bedroom. Now, mind you, what people don't understand is when you get in a courtroom situation, the dude can just be lying like a dog, making up a complete bunch of fiction, which has nothing to do with actually what happened. Sniffling, and wiping his eyes while on the witness stand, which didn't have any tears. He was just like... He continued his testimony. He said he gently pushed Jesse to the side and started to the bedroom door, but she immediately stepped in front of him again, putting his finger to his nose. Putting his finger to his nose He stuck his finger in her face. I'm not sure what that means. In a gesture of wiping away, imaginary snot on her. What? What? Okay. Instead of her moving, he claimed Jesse bit his finger. As all women do when somebody goes like this. You go, okay. All right. I didn't expect her to do that, he admitted. He admits. Okay. Pushing her to the side more forcefully this time, Jesse grabbed Bobby's arm tightly in an attempt to pull him back into the room. Bobby claimed he jerked his arm forward and then back, feeling his elbow strike Jesse, who immediately let go. He thought that would be the end of it until he heard Jesse fall hard. Turning around to see her on the floor, it was then that Bobby realized he had struck her in the throat. Mind you, her body was so decomposed by the time they found it, they couldn't prove exactly how she died. So he can make up any story he wants. Bobby immediately went over to her and asked if she was all right. Oh, she wasn't. Okay. Receiving no response, he began to shake her repeatedly before attempting CPR. Not finding a pulse, Bobby remembered that ammonia sometimes brought someone to who had been knocked unconscious. Okay. And luckily for him, he's got a bottle of bleach in the closet, and he fills up a bleach cup and sticks it under her nose. And he became panicked when she didn't respond and wound up knocking off over the bottle of bleach. You know that bottle of bleach that was used to clean up the crime scene? Good defense move. Oh, yeah, you just were trying to wake her up. Oops. Not knowing how to turn Jesse's phone on to call for help because he's a total freaking idiot, right? He doesn't know how to turn a phone on. Claims he fell on her bed crying. I didn't mean to hurt her. Okay. Oh, my God. Now, mind you, the bed was stripped of of the linens, and the mattress was askew. Bleach was used to clean up something, and his finger was bit, and the girl's dead. And he had said to a friend about a month ago, I kind of wanted to knock her off anyway. Oh, yeah, it was a good friend too, not somebody who's just making up stuff. It was a good friend who said, he did say that to me. Kind of want to get rid of her. My God. So this is okay, first of all, guilty as hell. Dude deserved to be in prison for the rest of it. He deserved a death penalty on this. But he's, because you can't prove it's premeditated, okay, I'm going to go with life. I'm okay with that. Now, the whole thing gets weirder and weirder. There he is now. Now he's in prison. And he says he was selfish back then. He was selfish. He was a selfish man. But now that he's in prison, he's learned to be a non-selfish man. And guess what? Grandma, who's been taking care of the grandson, now has forgiven Bobby Cutts. She doesn't know what happened that night. She doesn't. But she thinks that it was probably an accident. And she forgives him. And she wants her grandson to grow up knowing his psychopathic, creepy, murdering father. So she takes him to the prison to meet with his daddy. And she thinks he should get out sooner. So she has been petitioning for Bobby Cutts, the psychopathic murderer of her daughter, to be released from prison. And you wonder why I do these shows. It's because it's sad that a lot of people do not understand psychopathy. And these psychopaths can cruise through society doing things that are horrific. And yet there are people who will stand up for them and excuse them and come up with reasons why they do things. And no, the dude wanted to get rid of her because the child support was too expensive. He'd already proven that he was a louse, that he was a liar, that he was a manipulator. He's already done that with all the women, wives, children that he doesn't care about and take care of. And he murdered a woman in cold blood. I'm sorry, but what part don't you get? But what does it have to do with him being a police officer? Not much. And this is important to point out that we have many people who kill their wives and family who are not police officers. This is just a psychopathy that is in many, unfortunately, many people. And he got onto the police force because a lot of times you can pass a psych test. Sometimes the psych test isn't even really very useful. Some don't even give the psych test. And even when you have something minor in the past, they might let that slide, depending on the police department, depending on the desperation to get people into the police department. So that was Bobby Cutts. I think he's an interesting character. I'm going to stop and just see if anybody's got an comment here. Suddenly Beautiful says, wow, he's got an answer for everything. You betcha. Well, Emily says, I'd stick your finger in my nose, but I'd probably bite you too. Yeah, that's possible. But let me say this. I'm going to say that the reason she bit him was because he was in the process of strangling her at that moment. That the fact that the bed was moved, there was blood, there was a whole lot of stuff going on. Oh, I completely forgot to say, her son saw the whole thing, and he said, "Mommy hit the table. Mommy's in a rug. Mommy hit the table. Mommy's in a rug." I would say he beat the hell out of her, and probably strangled her. And then put her in a rug or whatever, a comfort or whatever he put her into. Yeah, but so I kind of agree. Maybe, okay, maybe. But with all the other things that are going on, I'm going to say she bit him because she was trying to survive, and so really, really sad. It's just a great play, Shakespeare, bleach to wake someone up. Well, yeah, okay, yep. So there's a. Oh, this is an interesting point, Lisa. Great question. Did the baby survive? No. Did he have an opportunity, according to his stupid story? If he hit her and she fell, what should be the first thing he would do? Call 911, get somebody over there to save his baby's life. But he didn't want the baby to be saved. Now, one might say, well, he couldn't get her phone to work. And you ask, where was his phone? Well, you know where his phone was? On his body, because when he went to dump her, oddly enough, he called her phone to look like he was still looking around for her. So he had his phone. He could have used his own phone. I mean, he just basically didn't have a very good story. That's why he eventually got, yeah. And what's interesting, poor little kid, Emily says, having to witness that. Not only that, now grandma is taking him to see Pop. So it's not Pop because now it's grandfather. That would be as daddy. He's going to see daddy, who is a murderous psychopath. And he's being basically taught that what his father did to his mother was a bad thing, but acceptable in the long run. And that his dad was still a worthwhile person to know. And I'm sorry, grandmother. It makes me ill. He murdered your daughter in cold blood. You're taking your son to a psychopathic murderer. Get him away from him. Don't let him play that game with him. Just say to your grandson, unfortunately, your father is a very depraved person. He has very severe psychological problems. He's just one of those people that has done something horrible that we can't forgive. And it has nothing to do with you, because there's a lot of those people in the world, and many of them have children, and it's not you. It's just a very unfortunate situation that your mother married him and didn't know. Yes, her mother takes him to see. Yes, the grandmother takes. This is the grandmother. She has forgiven Bobby Cutts for murdering her daughter. And she takes her grandson to see him on a regular basis and is trying to get Bobby Cutts out early so that he can be a father to his son. I'm going to stop with that because otherwise I will get very, very upset. Okay, let's go on to Drew Peterson. Now, Drew Peterson is the next level. I'm going kind of level up. So Drew Peterson. Oh, my God. Now, Drew Peterson. Okay, here's Drew. Here's Drew when he was young and actually a pretty good-looking dude, and I like his hair. It's one of those hairs you want to go. I think that must have gotten like a lot of girls. They liked his hair. And he didn't do so bad later. Still got hair. But anyway, I think, he was not an unattractive man to a lot of women. And apparently that's very clear because he got 4 wives. So wasn't doing too badly, was he? Now, let's take a look at Drew Peterson. Drew, 30 years. Now, this is interesting because he lasted for 30 years. He is the longest. When you look at killer cops, he is the longest. Most of them don't last very long. Bobby Cutts did make about 7 years. I'm going to talk about the other ones and how long they lasted. He actually lasted 30 years. And by the way, usually serial killer cops, and he's not one of them. He's a wife killer. And Bobby Cutts is a girlfriend killer. Usually the non-serial killer cops last longer than the serial killer cops because the serial killer cops are so deranged that they usually they're such psychopathic folks that a lot of the stuff they do is they don't understand how people think. They're so severe that they'd start doing things that are just really ridiculous. And the wife killers are a little bit more like, we see Bobby Cutts, he got women. I mean, he must have been kind of a hot dude, you know what I mean? He must have been very charismatic. And this is true for Drew Peterson. He's very much of a talker, very much of a, hey, I'm the dude in charge, and hey, I'm fun. Let's go to the bar and have a drink. And I'll point this out with Martin. We're talking about men and women. One of the differences between men and women is that men are very forgiving about male bad behavior. As long and like we're not going to argue over this dude. Just hand me another beer. They don't waste their time trying to overanalyze people. They're like, yeah, as long as I'm having fun, we're good. So Drew Peterson, being a cop, could play on this. He was probably fun. You know what I mean? If I was sitting in a bar next to Drew Peterson, I'd probably be laughing. I'd probably be having a good time. That's the way he is. And he lasted 30 years. Now, let's say, so he was in Bolingbrook Police Force in Illinois. He was assigned to the Metropolitan Area Narcotics Squad. And in 1979, he got a Police Officer of the Year. Doesn't mean he can't do his job in general. He's probably fairly good at it. And he was there until 2007 when he got convicted at the age of 53, and he got $79,000 a year in pension. But he did have a few little things. Peterson was also under investigation from his police unit for failing to report bribes and misconduct while undercover. But he was temporarily fired and demoted. So we do see a little bit of squirrely behavior, do we not? The problem is when you are a massive organization and people have been on the police force for a long time and have relatively been not too drama free, shall we say. When something comes up and it's hard to prove, a lot of times it will be then something you just take in, you do internally, you demote because you're like, we can't take this to court, but we'll just demote him and we'll go with that. And I can't blame police departments for doing this because sometimes it's just a really rough area because, you've got internal affairs trying to prove things and you got court systems and you've got, oh my God, there's so much into it. People don't realize what you have to go through. And so, if he's doing his job normally on a pretty good basis, they're just like, well, we'll do what we can internally, but we don't think we can do more than that because we don't have enough. So what about this dude? What makes him tick? Well, he's not a serial killer. And people will say, oh, he's killed two. We think he's killed two. And on me, I don't require serial killers to kill 3 people before I call them serial killers. But what I do require is that the serial homicide is not about convenience. And this is what I call situational homicide, the same as Bobby Cutts. The first wife, I don't know, let's see, which ones do I point to? I can't remember what they look like. Okay, I think it might be the first wife. Anyway, that didn't work out. I think it was a second wife who said every one of these wives was cheated on, just like Bobby Cutts. It's like he got the wife or the girlfriend, but then he had to cheat on it because he liked something else. And with the level of arrogance, and dude has arrogance. This guy has more arrogance than I know any person ever to have arrogance. He is an arrogant son of a gun. And so he cheated on every one of them. And then he ended up with, the divorce situation. He didn't kill the first one. There was one of them did say that she thought he messed with the brakes on her car. So there may have been a almost third homicide there. But it all came down to these 2 ladies. So we have the case of, okay, so let me get this straight so I can get all the names because I forget names. Okay, so let me just pull up, my thing on Drew Peterson. Okay, just so I can get everything straight about when things happened with Drew Peterson. So you got 2 issues here. This is Kathleen Savio. This is Stacy Ann Peterson. Now, mind you, can I call him asshole? That's gonna demonetize me. But asshole here was cheating on her with her. And the old story where you cheat if you're having an affair with somebody who's married, they're going to have an affair when you're married to them. And this is very true. If they're willing to cheat with you, they're willing to cheat on you. And sometimes women just got to stop being stupid. I'm sorry, but women, you got to stop being stupid. If the dude's married, don't mess with him. I don't care what his story is. I don't care if he says, oh, we're almost about to get divorced. I don't care if he says, she doesn't understand me. No, do not mess with a married man. Make sure the guy is divorced, not even separated, because that's half the time a lie too. Make sure he's divorced. You see the damn paper, the woman lives on the other side of the country. And they've been divorced 2 years, so they're not getting back together. That's when you mess with somebody. Don't be messing with a guy who makes claims, because if he might be a fat liar, and you are also getting involved and interfering with somebody else's marriage. So she was interfering with her marriage. So anyway, eventually he did divorce her and marry her. But what happened with Kathleen Savio? So she was found, I'm trying to remember the reason. The reason that he suddenly got pissed off at her. God, I've forgotten the reason. He's got reasons. He's got reason to get pissed off at all his ex-wives, but he was very annoyed with her. I don't know if it was an alimony issue or what it was. Or is it the children? I'm blanking on this one. They had one son together, Thomas, and also they had two sons, Thomas and Christopher. Actually, he was pretty good at having babies with everybody. The divorce was finalized on October 10th, 2003. It's reported that between 2002 and 2004, they were called out to the Peterson house 18 times on domestic disturbance calls, including calls for returning children late after visitation. Okay, so here we go. All right, so basically they were having custody issues. And one day she's found dead in a bathtub, her bathtub, a dry bathtub with injuries that are really suspicious. Now, and Drew shows up and he asks the neighbor, help me out here. And then the police come and he says, I'm not going in there first. Because, no, sorry, that was when he did go in. Wait a minute. Sorry. This is where people call me scatterbrain. I'm trying to remember that particular moment. Because I'm not doing a case, I'm not doing a video on this particular case. I'm doing it about police officers in general. He actually did go in, and he wanted to make sure he did, because then he could put his fingerprints on everything. And what's interesting about this whole thing was they did not have a really good autopsy issue here. They had a coroner who was part of the gang in a sense. And the coroner just basically said she had an accident in the bathtub, it's accidental death. And the simple fact is the evidence was overwhelming that it was a homicide. But because he was a police officer and because he was hooked up in that whole thing, people thought, oh no, he couldn't have done it. He couldn't have had anything to do with this. So it must be an accident. And they brought together like a grand jury thing and basically presented their information. And the grand jury said, yeah, it's an accident, because that's the way it usually works. And then he went on with his life. And here's the point being, if he were not a police officer, he would not have gotten away with this. It wasn't that brilliant. It really wasn't. It wasn't that brilliant. It's just that he had a system at that point in time, which was not believing that he would have committed that crime. And they did not do a thorough investigation like they should have, because it was his ex-wife. Or was he still married at the time? He never can keep track of the wives. So it was a system in that case that failed dismally. And so then the mistress marries him, knowing that she probably shouldn't. And it's interesting because actually she was his wife at the time. Okay, she cheated. Okay, I'm trying to get these things straight. She cheated with him on her. And then they ended up getting married, and he came home and was washing all his clothes and crap after Kathleen Savio got into an accident in her bathtub. Apparently that night he was like washing his clothes and telling her to shut the hell up, and she kind of shut the hell up. And you're like, this is a good piece of information to run like hell, because your husband is basically saying he just killed his ex-wife, but you don't go to the police, you just shut the hell up. And you already have evidence that this is where you get, he married very young. The girl's young. So it helps to marry young and stupid. I'm going to say stupid. So the younger you marry, that person has less experience. They're more stupid about things. They don't see things the way somebody 20 years older might see things. And so she just kind of went along with the program. And not that she was comfortable with it, because she went then and told her pastor, hey, something fishy is going on here, and I'm creeped out by the whole thing. And at some point, it must have gotten to him that she might not be as silent as he wanted her to be. And well, lo and behold, she disappears one day, and his gets a little help moving her body in a big, huge container, which is awfully heavy, 120 some pounds like her, and disappears. And she's never found again. And he goes on and says how she just, she ran away with a lover. And interesting, Bobby Cutts also said that baby that she was carrying, that 9-month-old baby, wasn't his, that she'd been screwing around on him. And no, it was another baby, another guy's baby. Yeah, sure. And now she's cheating on him. And she's run off with the guy she's cheating on and never been seen again or heard from again. So, but this kind of like set off the red flags. And finally, this case on Kathleen Savio was opened up again, and he went down for it. And he is just as arrogant as ever. He was arrogant in court. He was arrogant outside of court with the media. So what kind of guy is this? He's not a serial killer. He is a situational killer. He gets rid of people who are in the way. And as I always point out with psychopaths, you're either useful or you're in the way. These two ladies were in the way. And so he's now luckily in prison for the rest of his life, because if he did get out and marry number 5, you never know when she would be in the way too. She might not ever be in the way, in which case all is good, especially as people get older. Here's something we don't understand about psychopathy and age. When people get older, they get more needy. Okay, you can't pick up the young ladies like you used to, especially if you're not rich and famous. You go to the bar, you sit at the end of the bar, and all the young girls ignore you. It sucks. You can't get them anymore. So now you finally got some woman who's willing to put up with you. Maybe you're just not as good in bed as you just can't quite get it up anymore. You know what I mean? Half the time you just can't, and that Viagra's, you might have to use that. So just not really working as well. And you got diabetes now. You got high blood pressure, and you got to do the Monday, Tuesday, Wednesday, Thursday, Friday. You got to take the pills, and damn it, you just need somebody to clean the house, make some dinner, give you your pills, and put up with the fact that you can't get it up. In that case, you want a nurse. And if she nurses you, you may live happily ever after and never kill her. This is how situational homicide works. And so then people will say, well, his 5th wife, he never hurt her. Well, he didn't have a reason to hurt her. She was still useful to him. But if she ever got not useful, then he might get rid of her. But if she's useful, that psychopath may just simply manipulate her until the day he dies. And you will never see him lift a hand to her and be violent toward her. So do not misunderstand the difference between that a psychopath changes. They don't. And Bobby Cutts, his mother-in-law, coming to prison and wanting to get him out, he's just manipulating the hell out of her. She's fallen for it. And it makes me sad, because I think she's got a good heart. I do. I think she cares about her grandson. And I think she wants to forgive, because being angry is too hard. So she just wants to believe that he's changed. I hate to tell you that. He hasn't changed a bit. He's just manipulating you. And yes, he may not hurt you. He may not hurt his son, but he still murdered your daughter in cold blood. So, all right, now on to serial killers. We got those. All right. So I'm going to talk first about which serial killer. Oh, I'm going to talk about this guy first. This is Gerard Schaefer. Just let me check on any of your comments. Just so here's what Lisa says. I know you're not talking about the individual cases, but didn't any of Stacy's friends and families caution her to stay away from him? I don't know. But the problem often is it lands on deaf ears. I mean, you try to tell somebody, hey, this dude is not for you. Look what he's done with the other ones. And they're like, oh, no, I love him. He's really not the way you think. And you know how that goes when you talk about somebody bad about somebody's husband, she will defend him and hate you, and so it always goes very badly. Kay says, but a husband who cheats and kills, probably not a safe bet for marriage. Yeah, that probably is true. But they also, yeah, that's true. Less testosterone, true. Oh, you're not high. I called you high before, but you're HL. I liked high. Yeah, they got less testosterone. And so there's less aggression. And that is very true. And so there are there are mafia dudes and cartel dudes and drug dealing dudes. I met some of them when I was doing sign language interpreting. I met some of them. I saw them in the and places like assisted living type places. They were so sweet. They might have killed 50 people and ran a whole drug gang, but hey, now that they were in a wheelchair, they were very nice. So yes, you can be nice when you need help. Okay, let's go on to this dude, because we're going to work our way up to Couzens, which I know a lot of people are here for, but I want to explain the different methodologies and what reasons that these people are here. So this is, where'd he go? This is Gerard Schaefer. Now, Gerard Schaefer, oh my God, one of the most disgusting human beings ever. Truly, one of the most disgusting human beings ever. This is a serial killer, absolutely, hands down. My God, ever is the worst. So, first, I want to point out that, first, he's not a bad-looking dude. Okay, one of the things people always say about serial killers, oh, they're this ugly, they got a hunchback, they're monsters. No, the dude looks he's a pretty nice-looking guy, in my opinion. He's a pretty nice-looking guy. And he got married. He got married twice. Oh, did you notice? Here's another false idea that goes on. Do you notice how often people say, "Oh, serial killers, they can't get a woman"? Have you noticed? And psychopath, these killers can't get a woman. Have you noticed that so far everybody's gotten a woman? And guess what? We're going to be talking about two serial killers and one suspected serial killer. I'm going to talk about Gerard Schaefer. Then I'm going to talk very quickly about the Golden State Killer, one of the most egregious serial killers of all time, and then Couzens. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. Wayne Couzens in the UK, who just killed Sarah. All three of them married at the time that they were committing their crimes, and some of them married. Golden State guy was like 30 years. He was married to the woman. She wasn't too happy when she found out he was a killer. But so it's not like they can't get married. And people have this weird idea that they're all unable to be around females. No, they might have issues, but they can, again, if you're useful or in the way, a good wife is useful. She cooks, she cleans, she has babies to make you look like a man. And she's your alibi. A lot of times she's just your alibi. So, oh, hi, Diana. Diana's here. She says, "Hi, Pat, I'm from Texas. I'm late." Well, Diana, here's the advantage of YouTube. You can watch from here out. And if you're desperately sad you missed the beginning of the show, you get to go back and watch it later. This is true. BTK had a wife and family too. By the way, I'm going to do a show on the BTK. Dennis Rader was not the original BTK. He was the copycat BTK, but very few people know that. I will do a show on that. But yes, he had a wife and family too. He's a dog catcher. And he was like, but yeah, they had no clue. So, forever. Lisa says, "Forever okay, but what about marrying him in the first place?" Stacy was number 4. Yeah, and the first, in the beginning, when everybody's young, that's when you theoretically are both, you have this whole glorious idea of the future. Your husband to be is young, you're young, and he's just joining the police force. That sounds all great. So you really don't think much about it. Stacy, on the other hand, she just was probably gullible, because he was a lot older than her at that point. And I'm going to say she's gullible. Here's the thing. It's just like serial killers finding a victim. People say, "How did he get those victims?" Well, he just sat out there too, waited till one walked by. He wasn't concerned about getting this one or that one. He just was, anyone will do, but he might have not had the opportunity for 30 women walk by, but there were witnesses and he couldn't do it, or they were too big or they were too little. And then then girl walked by and he go, "Oh, nobody's witnessing this." Okay, he grabs her. Same thing with psychopaths and who get wives. It's not that every woman will go with Drew Peterson or Bobby Cutts, but some will. And all you got to do is find the some. And maybe you have to find the more gullible, maybe the more desperate. Maybe she needs a daddy, whatever. They'll find somebody. Stacy, Forever Young says, Stacy was 17 or 18, very young and no support system. Well, there you go. She got her daddy, right? In him. And he was making good money. Not a bad looking dude. And I'm going to guess kind of a fun guy, So she's like, oh, okay. And he will tell her stories about the other 3 wives, and the stories will sound plausible to somebody who has no experience. Say, oh, okay, well, I understand. Those are terrible women you got stuck with. Oh my God, they were so mean to you. Not realizing that is not the issue. Okay, so let's take a look at Bobby Cutts. Bobby Cutts. I'm sorry, I'm on the wrong thing. Sorry, Gerard Schaefer. I've moved along. Okay, there's a really cool thing on Gerard Schaefer here, and I want to read. Okay, where is it? I gotta find it. Hold on a second. I gotta find it. Oh, Christ. There we go. I'm losing things again. Oh, here we go. Okay. I wanted to point this out because we're talking about how did they get on a police force? All right. Apparently he had lots of issues growing up. He was did a lot of sick sexual kind of things growing up. And he was a weirdo. And he was fighting against supposedly these. This is a story he's telling later, so we can't necessarily believe. But anyway, supposedly he did see some psychiatrists. And then he went on, he attempted to join the Catholic priesthood, only to be turned down flat. I guess they went, it's creepy. Though little is known about the reasons for his rejection from St. John's Seminary, where he applied, Schaefer later said it was because he was told he didn't have enough faith. Now, I don't think that's probably going to be it. Yeah, I will get to that. Lisa identified with the original BTK. I will get to that later. It's a really interesting story, and it's going to be a really good video. I will get to that later. Yes, I actually worked on that case later. I went to Wichita, Kansas, and with a film crew, actually, because I was brought in by some families who had some other ideas. And there's a really good suspect that I believe is the original BTK. And it's a very complicated story, but it's very interesting. I'll get to that later. So, at any rate, next, after he failed getting into the priesthood, next Schaefer applied to become a teacher. Yeah. Specifically, he said he wanted to help instill American values in his students, such as unselfishness, honesty, and love. Now, it's interesting how psychopaths will try to instill in other people all the things they don't have, and they'll accuse other people of all the things they do not have. It's just this weird irony, the bad mirror image thing. Apparently, he wasn't very good at doing this because he was dropped from student-teacher programs twice. The second time was so egregious that his supervisor recalled that he outright told Schaefer that he'd better not let me hear of his trying to get a job with any authority over other people, or I'll do anything I can to prevent it. Oh my God. So in other words, now he's trying to be a teacher, and they're saying you're creepy as hell and you should have no authority over people. Something wrong with you. So sometimes we say, do people recognize that this guy's a psychopath and a half? And the answer is there's lots of signs. But oddly, somehow they managed to squeeze through anyhow, and people let things go. So anyway, he gets married. In 1968, he got married to a woman named Martha. Their relationship didn't last long, however, and they were divorced a mere 2 years later. In the paperwork, she cited extreme cruelty as the reason. By the way, they don't talk about it much, but he got remarried. And he was married at the time he got arrested for the murder of 2 girls. Then he had an epiphany. He would become a policeman. Why not? And as I point out quite often, serial killers will get jobs as security guards and police officers if they can. They like the uniform, the gun, the authority. Good portion of the time they can't get those jobs if they're higher level, and sometimes they end up there anyway. So I always tell women, hey, I've had family members that have been security guards, so I'm not saying all security guards, but maybe you want to think twice about letting them walk you back to a dark parking lot. Okay, so anyway, Schaefer applied to the Broward County Police Unit, but was rejected because he failed the psychological test. Now, psychopaths can pass those psych tests. They can. But he failed, which is really kind of telling. So they didn't hire him. But Wilton Manors Police Department hired him despite this. They were a small station and chronically understaffed. So hiring an applicant after a hiccup, like failing a psych test, didn't seem like the worst option. Now, this again is going to be a big problem in the future. As we have a defund the police movement going on, more and more people will not join the police. There are more police officers resigning, retiring early, because they're like, hey, it's too risky to be out there. I'm going to get accused of stuff. that, when I try to arrest somebody, I'm going to be accused of, whatever happens. And really, I didn't do it. Also, I'm getting too much hate on the streets. It's just an uncomfortable thing. So there are a lot of people just retiring and just quitting. And then when the police department tries to go hire new people, guess who they're going to get? Not as many good people. They're going to be willing to lower the standards. And some of those psychopaths that you're so worried about are going to be getting the job as police officers because they're desperate. So think twice about trying to defund police, because when you defund them, you're going to get some new fun with these psychopaths that are going to get into the job. And they're going to be far worse than what you've already got. That's just reality. Okay, so anyway, he got this job with Wilson Manors, but he was fired within a year. While official accounts vary, it was said that he was fired for using traffic stops as a way to meet women. So he got fired. Out of a job, he picked up and moved to Stuart, Florida, on the glowing recommendations of the former boss. Who the hell gives him glowing recommendations? And I'll tell you what. In our world today, when somebody calls you up for a recommendation, how was the guy? You're afraid to say anything bad about him because you'll get sued. And I worked on a case. That's exactly what happened. I said, why did you hire the dude? And they said, because the last guy we called said he was great. And when I went to the last guy that he worked with, the guy said, I just wanted to get rid of him. And I was willing to get him out of here any way I could. And so you can't necessarily trust a recommendation. So anyway, he got a good recommendation. So he got hired on quickly. Once there, he picked up two girls, 17-year-old Pamela Wells and 18-year-old Nancy Trotter, on a highway near a local beach. He drove them home in his cruiser, and they said they shouldn't be hitchhiking because it was illegal. Then he offered to pick them up again and take them to the beach safely the following day. The next morning, he picked them up, but instead of driving them to the beach, he took them to a swampy area. He forced them out of the car at gunpoint. He put nooses around their neck and made them stand on tree roots. If they fell off, they'd strangle themselves. Then, when it was about the time that he was going to do something maybe worse, a call came over from the police radio, and he had to leave, but he promised to return. I'm like, oh, good, you're coming back. And luckily, both Pamela and Nancy were able to free themselves while Schaefer was away. Quickly, they made their way to the nearest police station, the station where he worked. That's pretty funny. Thankfully, Schaefer wasn't there, and the police chief believed them. And even when he frantically called to tell his boss that he'd done something stupid to scare the young girls out of hitchhiking. And then they stripped him of his badge, arrested him on the spot. He was charged with imprisonment and aggravated assault. Okay, so they didn't fall for it. And by the way, in the links below, there is a video of Gerard Schaefer in prison, and he's talking about what happened here. And you should see the interesting way he tries to explain it away. And then he explains away the other crimes he was convicted of, which was double homicide. And how he says he never did anything bad ever. It's fascinating. He's really well spoken. He's got a nice voice. Fascinating stuff. So click on that. I'm not showing any of the videos here because that somehow the cuts they like block my video from even showing claims of I should know. Anyway, I'm not showing it here. So it's in there down below. So anyway, then what happened was, here's this amazing stuff about this is our legal system. He made his bond and was released. And while he was released on bond, he went and killed two more women. And he killed these two young girls. And then eventually they caught up with him. They found evidence at his house where he lived with his wife and mother-in-law. And they found evidence there. And they found evidence matching other crimes going way back. So he finally got nailed for those crimes. Now, let me see. I saved a page. Oh, some people have asked me about, the Delphi crime where people talk about why did he go for two girls instead of one? Well, there's an interesting thing that he talks about. Shoot, I just had it nicely here, and I managed to mess it up. Okay, hold on a second. Let me find it. He was talking about why he went for two, why he would go for two women instead of just one woman. Really? Oh, it's gone missing. I had that page stuck out here too. Okay then. Well, Bummer. Okay, so I'm going to tell you what he said because I can't read it. Anyway, he said, going for one is fine. That's easier and all that. But sometimes getting two girls is really cool because first of all, you can play around with both of them. And then sometimes you can threaten one and then go after, in order to get the other one. And that's what I said about Delphi. When the people said, well, why would he do two? I'm like, well, because you can tie them, get one to tie up the other. Then you can put one over there. And then you can say to her, if you don't do what I want, I'll kill your friend. I mean, you can do that. And then you can have fun with both of them and torture both of them and kill both of them and rape both of them. So, hey, you get a twofer, And so Gerard Schaefer thought that was a grand idea. And, so yeah, sometimes serial killers are perfectly happy with getting two and enjoying them. So now I want to point out one other thing with Gerard Schaefer. After he got convicted, his ex-girlfriend from high school hooked up with him, okay, in prison. She wasn't she wasn't one of those women that was looking for a date. No. Oh, here it is. I found it. I was in the wrong book. Sorry. It was in this book. In the beginning, Doing Doubles is what it's called. Here's how he compared his crimes to those of his arch rival, Ted Bundy. Ted was, of course, a tyro. A tyro? When he nabbed Ott and Naslund. I'm not sure what that means. When I nabbed Jessup and Place, I had been in the ghoul game for almost 10 years. So I knew what to expect from these juicy young creatures at the end. By then, I was into doing double murders and an occasional triple when the opportunity arose, whereas Ted at the same point was only able to handle singles. He was playing at copycat and doing a poor job of it at that. Doing doubles is far more difficult than doing singles, but on the other hand, it also puts one in a position to have twice as much fun. There can be some lively discussions about which of the victims will get to be killed first. When you have a pair of lively teenage bimbolinas bound hand and foot and ready for a session with a skinning knife, neither one of the little devils wants to be the first one to go first, and they don't mind telling you quickly why their best friend should be the one to die. Okay, I did not paraphrase that nearly as well as this creepy Gerard Schaefer did. Okay, so this is a book. So this book is by Sandra London. So when he was in prison, he had written all these, and they're handwritten, stories about raping and killing women. And she put this all in a book called Killer Fiction. He later sued her, claiming she was just after the money. I'm not going to say if she is or she wasn't after the money, but it's all in one book. There is no link below. And I won't put a link below to this horrible, horrible, disgusting, disgusting book, because I have read some of the stories in here, and they are the most gruesome, repulsive, vicious, hateful, gory stories of brutally torturing and raping, murdering women. If you want to understand how a serial killer who does gruesome things to women actually thinks, this is actually the book to read. These are his, quote, fantasies, but also these are, for him, probably things he actually did. So he's not only telling us his fantasies, he's actually telling us exactly what happened. And a lot of times people can't believe that people could think this way. He can think this way. This is everything that gives him incredible pleasure, and it is the most horrifying thing I've ever read. So I'm not recommending you read it, but if you're a detective, if you're a student of psychopathy, a student of crime scene analysis, you can go read this. It's vomit material. I mean, it's so bad. If you look at the back of the book, John Wayne Gacy, he gets a quote. He gets a thumbs up from him. Schaefer's writing is graphic and keeps the reader wanting more. Only if you're sick as hell. He has done his research. Yeah, his research was in real life. And it reads as if he's tried it all too. Yeah, he has done that. That's for damn truth. Lawrence Bittaker, another serial killer, writes, Schaefer has a gift for creating a readable story. His subjects are predominantly morbid or bizarre and seems to reveal a touch of coprophilia. And that's coprophilia is an interest in feces, and especially feces in a sexual sense. And so if you read this, you say it's pretty grotesque. William Herons, I forgot how you say his name. Schaefer seems to lack respect for women. You think? Or men, for that matter. Yeah. I can see what he's trying to do, saturate the public with, quote, kinky murder accounts as if he was a modern day Grimm brother. Yeah, it's about as sick guts. But I say, I wouldn't read it unless you are specifically, if you're like a sicko, a serial killer wannabe, shame on you. If you're a person who just a regular human being, don't do it. If you're a person who wants to understand specifically for your line of work, yes. But I don't want this, it's disgusting. I mean, it's the most horrible thing, most despicable thing I've ever read. It's like a slasher film and written down in all the details. So it's grotesque. So moving on to, I just want to mention quickly, and I'm going to move on to Couzens after this. I want to mention our DeAngelo, Joseph DeAngelo. Let me pull him up. Oh, where is Joseph? Oh, you never even. Hold on a second. So anyway, that, by the way, this is what he looked like when he got arrested on the left. Now he's looking kind of shabby. These are the two girls that he got nailed for, but not necessarily anybody else. So they don't call him a serial killer, Gerard Schaefer, because they only got him for these two. But believe me, the dude is a serial, and they got a lot of cases connected to him, and they just haven't prosecuted them. And this is his. Here he is in jail, in prison, and that's the video is down below. That's interesting to listen to. Any human being can listen to that without being totally repulsed. But it's amusing because you can see how he tries to excuse everything he does. It's just quite amazing. So that's that. Now let's move on to Golden State Killer. This is one of the reason that he's so interesting is that he didn't last long as a police officer. But let's see, where is he here? Where is it? Okay. He killed. I mean, this guy killed. He's one of the most prolific serial killers of all time, over 2 decades. And they didn't get him till he looked like this. So you see how successful serial homicide investigation is. Not. If it takes you until he's like ready for the assisted living home, and all you're doing is giving him a comfortable place to live, you're taking way too long, because all those people have died in the meantime while you didn't catch him. So something is wrong with your serial killer homicide investigations. And I'm going to do more work on what should be done, because I think it's being mishandled as far as methodologies. Well-meaning, but I think the methodologies are failing dismally. Okay, so this guy, he actually did get a BA in criminal justice. And by the way, I just want to say this, and no offense to all you criminal justice people and to myself, because I have a master's in criminal justice, but criminal justice is one of the easiest classes to pass. It is. It's not hard. So, if you want to get through something quickly and graduate, you can take criminal justice. It's just really easy. It's not like physics and math and sciences and anything else. It's just the easiest class ever. And serial killers love that stuff because they're interested in law enforcement. And so, yeah, psychopaths, I mean, so many times I've had people say to me, I'm really interested in criminal justice. And I'm like, why? And so a lot of times criminal justice students indeed have psychopathic issues, and some of them are budding little serial killers. And so he got his BA, and then he did a 32-week police internship. So he did the whole police academy thing. He got, in 1970, this is before he started with his police work. He got married. Oh, no, he got engaged. She broke the engagement, and he threatened her with a gun, like, marry me or I'll kill you. Something a little wrong there. 1973, he married Sharon Huddle and had 3 daughters. They separated in 1991. That was after, and she just stayed. They separated for many years, but she didn't file for divorce till 2018 when he was arrested. Then she was like, "Oh my God, you got to be kidding me!" And she said some really interesting things in the court. I have a picture of her in court here. Oh yeah, here she is in court. And she said her oldest daughter said he was the best father ever. And she said, I had no clue. He would go off and do what he had to do. And I always believed he was doing what he had to do. And that's an interesting point, because here's the thing with police detectives and officers. It's really easy to say to your significant other, I got to go. And what are you going to say? Police have really bad hours. They work really weird shifts. They sometimes work overtime like you wouldn't believe. Sometimes they're working 70 hours a week and not 40. If you're, depending on where you are in the units, you might be just gone for days and falling asleep in your chair at the office. So police have terrible hours. So for the police officer to say to his wife or her husband or whoever, hey, I got to go. They need me down, whatever they need. There's a mass casualty situation. I got to go and help out. There may be no mass casualty situation. What does she know? Unless and this is the days before internet. So if I'm told that, I'm like, hey, mass casualty. Oh, well, that's what happened. But she may have no avenue to find out where her husband's going and assumes that he's going to do what he's going to do. And then he comes home and says, hey, man, I'm tired. I got to take a shower. She's not going to question that he's taking a shower to get rid of all the DNA from the women he killed. She's going to think, he was sweating in his, he has all his uniform on and all the heavy stuff on him. And he's got, it makes you tired and hot. You want to take a shower. So she may never have suspected. And he managed to stay married to her for quite a long time. Now, she did separate from him. So I'm going to say at that point, she might have had inklings that he wasn't a very good husband or that he was a psychopath or whatever, but she probably never thought he was a serial killer. So anyway, he got married in 1973. Now, in 1973 is when he started his police work too, which is interesting. He started working in the burglary unit in Exeter in California. Interesting enough, what did he do when he was working the burglary unit? He became a burglar. And he burgled all these kind of places. And one thing people need to understand is that when a lot of times rapists are also burglars. They start out with burglarizing, or they burgle and rape, and when it goes to court, it's lower to just burglary because they can't prove the rape or can't prove the sexual assault or whatever it is. So it's all about getting into somebody else's space, crawling into their space and touching it and messing with it and taking things from it. And that's a lot of similarities to rapists. So many rapists are also burglars, and he started out with burglary. Now he was the burglary unit in Exeter. Then he did that for 3 years. Then he moved to another location, 1976 to 1979. That's when he started raping, and he started breaking into places and raping. And his rapes went on to the entire time he was in the next unit. But he was arrested for shoplifting, a hammer, and a dog repellent. What? Arrested for shoplifting, a hammer, and dog repellent. Why you even do that, I don't know. But that's the way psychopaths sometimes just do retarded little things, Oh, I'm sorry. Silly little things. Because I just said a word you're not supposed to use anymore. Okay. And he got 6 months probation, and then he was fired. Now, let me explain how that actually works. Why was he fired? He got the 6 months probation, and then he was fired. I'm going to say that during those 3 years, that police agency noticed things about him that creeped them out. They've been trying to get him out and will look for any excuse to get rid of him. And when he finally did something they could nail on him, even if it was very small, they did it. And they did everything they could to get him the hell out of there because they said something's wrong with this dude. Now, what's interesting to me is that all these burglaries went on in the other town he lived in, where he worked in the burglary unit. And then he was raping where there were all these rapes going on in the town where he was now living with this and working in this unit. Nobody put together that maybe the dude is a serial rapist. And serial rape and serial murder are very similar. It's just one just goes a little further. They're always serial something. You don't rape once. You don't do a sexual homicide once. So this guy's got, all these things are happening in the town, and you got this creepy police officer you want to get rid of. Maybe you should be looking at him, but apparently he didn't. After he got fired, then he went on to murder, and he continued murdering for a very long time. He started murdering actually in 1979, pretty much. So he also did doubles. He did men and women. He liked to go into houses and rape the woman while he get the woman oftentimes to tie up the dude, and then he put dishes on the guy's back and say, if those dishes fall, I'm going to kill your wife. And that would force him into not moving and not doing anything. And then he'd rape and torture, whatever. And then someone has to kill them, and eventually killed everybody. And he had, I'm trying to see how many, good Lord. He had the amount of murders he had. Let's see, what did he, wow. I'm trying to see what the actual number was that they came up with. I have to go back to the beginning here. Let's see. They said he committed at least 13 murders, 50 rapes, and 120 burglaries from 1974 to 1986. 3 crime sprees. He was known as the Visalia ransacker, the East Area rapist, and then eventually he was called the Night Stalker, and then the original Night Stalker, and then he became the Golden State Killer. And they finally got him with DNA. As I point out most of the time, that is how they get people. During the decades-long investigation, several suspects were cleared through DNA evidence, and then they indicated that the DNA proved the East Area rapist and the original Night Stalker were the same person. They're like, oh my God, these are all connected. And now they went on from there, and they used the DNA database to solve the cold case, which is usually how they're solved. And eventually they connected him to family forensic stuff, the genetic genealogy. And he didn't, get this one though. On June 29, 2020, he pled guilty to multiple counts of murder and kidnapping. As part of a plea bargain, he was spared the death penalty. Oh, good. Just what we need. So anyway, he admitted a few extra ones, made him, they could close a few more cases. He got life imprisonment. Oh, yay, for that, for a 2-decade-long spree, and who knows how much more. So that was him. So that is a serial killer that is, he, as a police officer, he was never a detective. He was a police officer who worked, but I don't think it was police. He was working. Yeah, he was working there, but he wasn't necessarily quote a detective. But anyway, he did burgle when he was in the burglary unit. So he knew what to do, what to not do. He was actually pretty damn good. You got to admit. Yeah, he got away with burglary, rape, and murders for decades. That dude was clever. And I may do a whole thing on his methodology at some point, but he was very, very smart about everything he did. And the only thing that got him was DNA, because remember when he first started, DNA was not a thing. And that's how you catch some of these guys. Now that people are aware DNA can get you done, they're more careful about leaving DNA. They cover up more with gloves and clothing and using condoms. So that may not be as useful in the future, but because, it happened way back then, the DNA was everywhere, and they were able to close the cases. But again, he's an elderly guy now, and so he had free reign for decades, and nobody had a clue who he was. And it was interesting. He also, this is a little picture of many of the people he killed. I mean, that's a lot of different people, and the couples was very, very interesting. This is what he looked like at the time. He was, he was a young man once, and so And then, do I have a picture of that? I had one before. But they did a lot of sketches. And some of them looked like him and some of them didn't. But guess what? None of them did any good. They never caught him. They had sketch after sketch after sketch. Because they had pictures of his face. He wasn't always, masked. He had pictures of his face. And those sketches did nothing. So I always have a little problem with sketches. Either they're not very accurate, or they could represent 500 different people, or it doesn't lead them to the person that it should lead them to. I'm not saying you shouldn't do it, but sometimes it just, I don't know how useful it is. So now I'm going to go to the last case, and this is Couzens. I hope I'm pronouncing his name right. And he is the guy that just got convicted in the UK, in England. And he killed, his name is Wayne Couzens. He's 48 years old. And he had a wife and 2 children. Another one, totally married. He's married. Let me show you a picture of it. Here he is with his wife. She said I hadn't a clue he was doing this crap. I had no clue that he was that deranged. But it's a little interesting to me how she didn't know anything about his creepiness. Because get this, he joined the police in 2005, so he was a long-term, he was there for quite a while. 2005, so 16 years he worked with the police. So he's like the Golden State Killer was a long-term one. Interestingly enough, yeah. The question is he a serial killer? And I'll get to that in a minute. Apparently, he was dubbed by other police officers the rapist. I mean, really? Isn't it a good idea to have a guy, in your department that's called the rapist? Is there not something you should be maybe concerned about? I don't know, maybe concerned. And he was known to have an obsession with violent porn, which is concerning right there. I mean, first of all, that he would let anybody know he was interested in violent porn is a concern. And why is one interested in violent porn? And people try to downplay that stuff. Oh, it's just a fantasy. No, violent porn means that you're a sicko. And if you're right now watching violent porn and you think it's cool, no, you're a sicko. You have a personality disorder. Because if you think that it is exciting and sexually stimulating to see a person be victimized and tortured and scream in pain, you're a personality disorder. You're a psychopath. Okay, that's what you are, and you better own that. So, was this dude love violent pornography? Dude, you're a psychopath. The fact that you, instead of thinking of, let's go back to your wife. You got your nice wife. Got your nice wife at home and your children. You can make love to this woman. You can have her smile and be happy. And you can enjoy a beautiful time with her. But no, apparently you'd rather go to prostitutes when you were married. And God knows what you asked them to do, because I'm going to guess it wasn't the same thing as what you asked wifey to do. I'm going to say you asked them to do lots of kinky stuff. And the kinky stuff is going to probably be related to violence. And even if it was faked violence, it was still violence in your mind. It was still what turned you on. So you're a sick human being and a psychopath. And you were that through the entire time you were working as a police officer. And that's concerning, that they would call you the rapist and nothing happens to you. Now, he also had, in 2015, an indecent exposure incident. Now, you already got a guy who's got questionable behavior patterns. Now, again, is he like Drew Peterson? He's fun to go to the bar with. Go to the pub, because you're in England. You go to pubs. We go to bars in the U.S. You go to pubs. You go to the pub with this dude, and you're having fun with him because I'm going to guess he's kind of fun to be around. And when he says sick stuff, or admits to sick stuff, you kind of go, that's just Wayne. He's talking crap. No. Wayne is telling you the truth. But you just didn't pay attention. And he gets a kick out of the fact that he can tell you, his buddies, his fellow police officers, this stuff, and you just ignore it. And so when the 2015 indecent exposure incident came up, now one could say, we don't know that it was really true, that the person complained that he indecently exposed himself, but we don't know that it's true. But I'm going to say, considering everything else, maybe that should have been something you took priority. Then, just before Sarah was murdered, there were 2 more incidents where he indecently exposed himself, and his car was involved in that. And it's like, you already had a complaint before. He's a creepy creature, and now he's got 2 more complaints. Why don't you? And they said, well, we were investigating. Well, you took too damn long. Some things ought to go to the top of the charts when that's this kind of thing. And I want to point out something very important. Somebody wrote a really great article. It was called this, and it was written by The Guardian. And this was an excellent article. The indecent exposure epidemic. How are they not taking this seriously after Sarah Everard? Okay. Flashing is a sexual offense. Victims say it can have a lifelong impact, and experts say it can lead to escalating crimes against women. Why is the police response so often dismissive? And this is a huge problem. Now, I'm not registered, so I can't read the rest of the article, but here's the thing. Exposing yourself, indecent exposure, is a pre-rape behavior. It is a pre-rape behavior. Nobody does that who doesn't want to offend and sexually exploit the victim that they're exposing them to. They want to see how much they can do it. They want to see the reaction. They want to say, ha ha, look what I did to you. Now, I may not have touched you, but I've exposed myself to you and you're horrified. And it is a sexual event. And I get a kick out of it. Then when you get the guys that go into people's houses and start going through their drawers and stealing their panties and putting bubble gum. One case had the guy putting bubble gum in the woman's panties, and she'd come home and she'd open up her drawer and she'd take out her underwear and there was bubble gum stuck in it. She knew somebody had come into her house and put that bubble gum in her panties. She was like freaked, which she should have been, because that's pre-rape behavior. It's like, I'm getting into your territory, I'm doing something sexual to you, and ha ha. Then some of these guys go to another level. That same guy who did the bubblegum thing, he would then hide. He'd go to like Walmart, some kind of basic store like that, and he'd hide in the clothing racks in the children's section. And as the mothers were like looking for things for their children, the guy would peep out and he'd squirt oil on the jeans of the woman on her butt, and because it was representing semen. And he's like, look, you see, semen on you. And in his fantasy. And the children, some of the children of these mothers who were in there were going, look, mommy, and she's trying to get mom's attention. And she didn't see anything, but it was on video. This guy eventually did commit rapes and was eventually imprisoned. But yes, indecent exposure. And they do a lot of talking here about how it frightens women, makes them feel uncomfortable. Okay, well, that's all sad and all that stuff. But the real important thing here, not so much how it makes you feel at the time, it's the fact that it's a pre-rape behavior. And that when somebody like this does indecent exposure, it means he is a rapist in mentality and may then go to the next level. So every indecent exposure thing should be taken very seriously by the police department. But the problem is, it's hard to prosecute. It's hard to prove. And that's why a lot of times they just go, just got a creepy dude. That's why. I mean, sometimes it's not like it's the police department's fault. It's that they don't have any good legal ability to do something about this kind of thing. So they have to do what they can do, which is a lot of times just mark it down, or maybe you got to get some little slap on the wrist, or maybe nothing happens because they can't prove it. But in my opinion, whoever commits these indecent exposure things, they definitely ought to pay attention to much more seriously, especially when it's one of their own. And they didn't pay attention to that. So there was a lot of evidence that he was going to commit this horrific kind of icky crime and rape and murder somebody. Now, he had fantasies. And then the question comes down to, is he a serial killer? Because he was like 48 years old when this happened. And they're like, yeah, this wouldn't have been a first crime. This is a very interesting story about and how he committed this crime. Now, what I want you to do, when you finish this, you can go below and the links. And I have a link to Sky News, and they do a really long whole description of how he committed the crimes. They've got all the photos from all the different cameras. It's actually really, really, really detailed about where Sarah was walking and all the times that she was walking there, and then it's amazing stuff. Shows the whole crime almost like from beginning to end. Now, the reason I'm pointing this out is because, first of all, I'm not going to do the whole story because we know he raped and murdered her. But I want to point out the fact that he sucked at what he did. I mean, the dude sucked, really badly. I mean, I can't see anybody committing a more ridiculous, badly planned crime as this guy. So essentially, here's the basics of it. He decides he's going to rape and kill somebody, not necessarily Sarah, just somebody. So he goes and rents a car in his own name, on his own credit card. Don't do that. That's stupid, And then he goes to all these different places before he gets her, after he gets her to the gas station. And it's like, does the guy not understand CCTV cameras? I mean, one of the things that's really helping police these days is the fact that there's cameras in so many places. There's cameras, traffic cameras. There are cameras on people's houses, the doorbell cameras. There's cameras for businesses. I mean, you can track an awful lot. So police are actually closing a lot of murder cases by the fact they can track people through these cameras and through their cell phones. So the idiot basically just, his car shows up. Here's his car. Here's his car. Here's his car. Here he is with Sarah. Here's his car. Here's his car. Here's his car. I mean, and then he's got his cell phone stuff too. I mean, the guy's an idiot. I mean, the guy's a plain idiot. And everything pointed to him. I mean, it wasn't hard to figure out it was Wayne Couzens. Everything pointed to him. It's like, you're the worst serial killer ever. Now, you become a really bad serial killer in 2 points of your life. The first time you do it, and later on when you just start getting so arrogant, you're like, yeah, I've killed so many women now. And you get sloppier and sloppier, and eventually they just catch you because you're stupid, because you're just becoming careless. But he was such an idiot. And I'm looking at this, I'm thinking, I don't believe he's killed a ton of women before this. I don't think so. I mean, it's so badly done. And then, yes, he's 48, and you think he had to be doing something. But I think what he may have been doing was pornography, a tremendous amount of fantasizing over violent pornography. He may have been hooked up with the prostitutes, getting them to do whatever he wanted. That also helped, him enjoy his fantasies. Now, does that mean he didn't rape anybody? I'm not going to say he didn't rape anybody. I would check to see whether there are prostitutes who were raped, hitchhikers who were raped, people who were just raped, women who were raped, because that doesn't require as much work as does as raping and killing. So I think he worked, he may have done other crimes, but I don't necessarily think he's committed a sexual homicide prior to this, only because he's so bad at it. Although it's possible he could have killed a prostitute. So in other words, the mistake he made was going, first of all, after sorry, let me remove his wife from here. Go back to Sarah. Sarah was just a nice young woman who was walking, unfortunately, way too far along in the dark. And I looked at some of the areas she was walking, and I understand why she didn't feel that frightened, because a lot of them were just like walking down sidewalks. It wasn't like she was walking through the park. And it wasn't like she was walking through completely isolated, like office areas or something. She was actually walking past tons of houses, and it's like, you wouldn't really feel that scared. So I can't really say that was an unusual thing for her to do. And he did use his police. And this is also very interesting because it's unusual. Outside of Gerard Schaefer, who did use his policeness, to say, I'm a police officer. Look at me. I got a badge. Let's do this. I'm safe. The other guys, Drew Peterson didn't kill because of his badge or using his badge, and because he was killing his own wives. And Bobby Cutts, again, his girlfriend. So that wasn't part of the deal anyway. So it wasn't using his police abilities. The Golden State Killer also, as far as I can see, didn't use his police badge to kill anybody, to get anybody to trust him. He was climbing through windows. So he was using his smarts. He learned probably from his investigative work to commit good crimes. This idiot, first of all, couldn't commit a decent crime, apparently. And then he did use his badge to say to her, oh, look, I'm arresting you, and arresting you for a mask violation or whatever the heck stupid thing he said. And should she have gotten into his vehicle? He's got a badge, but it was such a flimsy charge. I don't know if I'd say I'd prefer not to get into your vehicle. I'm going to knock on these people's door. It's one of these tough situations where when you're confronted with it, it happens so quickly that you fall for it easily, and you think, oh my God, I got to do what he's telling me. So he did use his police position and to get her, and so that was interesting because that does happen, but in most of these cases it doesn't happen because probably really not a smart way to do things. It's better not to have any relationship to you and your victims at all. Go with 100% stranger and 100% it's not connected to my work. So when you start connecting your work to the victim, or your proximity to the victim, or somebody that's when you get caught. So he did use his position to get her to trust him and go along with him, and it's really sad. But he did commit the crime absolutely horribly. So hopefully he will never get out again. And they should look in history and see whether he's committed other homicides or other rapes. Absolutely. I'm not one of these people that just because I believe this is likely, I'm going to say, don't do that. You should do that because you want to find out, make absolutely sure. Are there other rapes? Are there other sexual homicides? We need to know these things. We need to close cases if we need to close them. And we don't want to close them if he didn't do them either. We don't want him in prison claiming he committed crimes he didn't commit, and they close the case and the real guy is still running around out there. So we don't want that. But it was that's a really interesting case. And his wife knew nothing. Now she's divorced him. She's obviously like, oh my God. And it's So the thing about police and our killer cops, it's the same thing we have as pedophile, priests, or we have touchy teachers. Most of them are not. But two things happen: either that's a profession people can get into. And then because they're in it, then they have opportunity, or they pick the profession because they have opportunity. I think more of the time they just go into it and then have opportunity. With the police cases here, you know, for the many police officers and detectives and you know, everybody works at the police departments throughout the world. It's, you know, it's not a common thing, but one thing is true with the police, though, is that, you know, they do attract people who like a uniform and a badge and a gun. They like people who like a little bit of power and control. And that is a number one thing of psychopaths. So I think they have more of an issue with trying to make sure they don't get those kind of people than perhaps other professions. But it is, you know, that's why we want to have the best police, the police situation we can wherever we live, so that we attract the best. And we can also make sure we don't just say, you know, we're desperate, we got to get somebody in here to do this job. Okay, you know, he's got an axe in his hand and he says, I hate bitches. Okay, let him in. You know, we need them. You know, we need anybody. We need a body. You know, we don't want those people in our police department. So what we want to make sure is that they have good background checks. And as you can see, some of these background checks seemed a little weak, didn't they? Very, very weak. Okay, so, oh, that's very cool. I'm going to look at some of your comments now because I'm pretty much done with this. England has been a leader in the number of CCTV for a long time. You know, there are a lot of people who object to CCTV because they're claiming it's Big Brother and it's creepy that something's watching you all the time. And I get the understanding and the feeling of that, but I guess I've always leaned on this. When I'm walking out in public, I'm in public. When I'm driving in public, I'm in public. I mean, I'm in public. It's not in my house. I'm out in a public location. I don't mind when I walk into a store that somebody sees me, you know, walking around the store, because I know if I don't commit crimes, nobody's going to give a crap what I do. If I pick my nose, if I'm shaking my teeth, nobody's watching those videos, cares one crap about what I do. If I look like crap that day, I don't look attractive, that doesn't make any difference. Nobody pays attention. Nobody cares what Pat Brown is doing at all, unless a crime is being committed. And so at that 5-minute moment that there's a crime being committed, yes, they'll go back and look at that one time frame. They don't care what happened 2 days ago or 5 days ago or a month ago. They don't care. They're only looking at that time. And if I'm not the one committing the crime, I'm not really concerned about that. So I actually like CCTV because I think it does indeed protect the community in ways that we cannot even realize how good it is, because I know police departments are using so much of that these days. And I know so many cases being closed because they can identify the cars and the people with that CCTV, and even sometimes the actual crime in action. And they're taking that person off the street before they kill 2 or 3 or 4 other people. So, okay, I don't want like people looking at me when I'm in public on a TV thing, but you know, I kind of don't want to be killed either. So in private, I have issues, and I'm not particularly fond of people pulling out their cell phones and videotaping people's moments of being, you know, angry moments, you know, when they yell at somebody or they act foolish in public, because God knows I've done that. You know, I got mad at, you know, some restaurant server and go, I really don't want it on camera on YouTube. You know, I don't think that's necessary. I think that's just sick. But police work, I'm okay with that. Well, you know, I see what you're saying. I say no right to privacy, but government doesn't have a right to spy either. Well, I don't, you know, it's really there. That's, you know, see, this is a problem. I mean, I understand the ongoing argument over it. So I understand both sides of this argument. I see where we want to be free from the government filming us every place we go. I get it. But on the other hand, I know CCTV has done tremendous amounts for criminal cases. I'm mixed. I'm mixed on that. I really am. Let me see what everybody else has to say. There's a good one from Anne Christine. Many people probably think these men are strange in some way, but do not understand how bad and serious the situation is. We should be educated about psychopaths, the typical features. Yes, and this is what I keep saying about when we're doing these cases, like the Delphi case. The one thing the police never do is put out a list of how a psychopath is. And it bugs the heck out of me. It's like, stop saying, we're going to get you. We can get you. And if you know anything about this crime, which people are like, oh, I don't know what I know about this crime. No, tell people exactly where the crime occurred, exactly how it occurred, exactly who they're looking for, and that is a psychopath. And put the list up. A psychopath is somebody who has no empathy. It's all about them. Put the list, the Hare's psychopathy checklist up there. Let people and say, do you know somebody who has these exact traits? I'm going to say this guy had those exact traits. And they should have noticed them in his job, and his wife should have noticed them too. But she probably didn't, because she didn't know what they were. So I think that's one of the sad things about that. This is an interesting point. Here's a good point, Kay. I'm pro-union, but I think the police unions can be a problem in keeping bad cops. That is, again, like the CCTV thing. It's like a yes and yes. So yes, on one hand, they do have to protect the police from, because what happens with a lot of police officers and people on the streets and doing what they've got to do is they get so many bogus charges against them, and so much stuff that there will be nobody left. Everything would be just they'd be in court the entire time. They'd be off duty, which just gets ridiculous. So the union is supposed to protect them against these kind of ridiculous charges, and people don't understand that. Most of the time when they're arresting people, they're criminals. And those criminals do not have ethics, and they're psychopaths. So they will lie like dogs about the police officer arresting them all the time. I can't breathe. My thing is too tight. He did this to me. He spit on me. They'll make up stories constantly. Well, and so the problem is you don't usually have honorable citizens making the complaints. You usually have criminals making the complaints. So the police union is supposed to be there to protect the police officers from getting their lives ruined and not being able to go home to their family and children, and also so they can perform their job without worrying every single second that they're doomed by the end of the day. On the other hand, sometimes they can protect people that shouldn't be protected. And so you're right about that. So, it's a tricky thing. It's a very tricky thing. Let's see what else we have. Oh, here's a good question. Martin asks, are there occasions when the distinction between serial killers and situational killers becomes blurred? Well, only in my mind, no, because I don't know of a serial killer that's a situational killer, or a situational killer that's really a serial killer, because a serial killer is doing it for the thrill of power and control and for his own fantasies. A situational killer is doing it because that person is in his way. Take a look at the Dittrich case. He's not a serial killer. Theoretically, he killed his first wife because of issues they were having. Theoretically, he killed the guy that he killed and chopped into pieces. He killed him because he was onto him and would maybe expose him. And then his friend of a long time, apparently she might expose him as well. So we're talking about situations where he's still a psychopath. That doesn't change. It's the reasons he does things. So he's basically saying, well, I'm a really nice guy until you piss me off. I'm a really nice guy unless, hey, I'm going to go down, and then you're going to go down before I'm going to go down. But a serial killer is a completely different animal. It's somebody sits there going, my life is not satisfying as it is, and I need to get this thrill out of the power and control I get over killing people, whether it be Son of Sam type thing, where he likes shooting people and watching them drop and knowing he killed them. He doesn't need to actually touch them. And then you've got this guy who, if he didn't get caught for Sarah, would probably go on to kill, and maybe has killed other people. So he's not called a serial killer because we don't have proof he's killed more than Sarah, but he's got the mentality of a serial killer, so I'm going to call him one anyway. Golden State, clearly a serial killer. And we talk about Gerard Schaefer. He only got convicted for that one set of crime, that one set of girls. But he's a serial killer and a half, and he's not doing anything because anybody's getting in his way. He goes out and looks for trouble, and he makes trouble, and he enjoys himself making that trouble. So that's completely different than a situational killer. So I'd say pretty much no. We got a trench coat thing going on there. I had a dude expose himself to me in college. I was in the parking lot and he walked to me in the classic trench coat. Oh, the old classic trench coat. Those things were really useful. It's like, oh my God. Yeah. Let's see. What else, of course, we have? I'm looking for your great questions. Let's see. What other great questions do we have? let's see what this is. U.S. Libertarian says almost every serial killer has a long string of too short prison sentences, ignored crimes. Yeah, that's part of our problem with our legal system, is that we're downplaying. The idea is that they've got so many, they make so many plea bargains, and so they in order to be able to convict, because we're dealing with the jury system and so much time the jury system will let them off, it's like, okay, well, look, we want to get you on the sexual homicide, or let's say we want to get you on the rape, but I think that jury might not fall for it, because we don't have enough evidence, not fall for it, but they're not going to go for it. And so let's go with the burglary. Let's tell you what, we won't charge you with rape if you'll accept the burglary charge. And the guy goes, okay. And so what happens is he only goes in as a burglar. And so sometimes he's like committed 3 burglaries, and he's like, no, he's committed 3 rapes, but he's only listed as a burglar. And so because, and they're in there such a short time, a lot of times it's the recognition isn't that they're a psychopath and a serial criminal, and they're going to come out and do it again. So, you have certain crimes which theoretically they could be a one-off crime, but when you get people who are committing the kinds of crimes that are serial crimes, unless some reason they really, quote, changed in prison, they're going to come out and do it again at some point, or be a danger. And so, yes, I believe in longer prison sentences, but everybody's like, no, we can't give them those long prison sentences. And so most of the time they don't get them. So it's apparently problematic. Let's see. Oh, that's a good question, Jolly. So if they go for twosomes, does it mean he has already killed singles before? I would say, generally speaking, yes, because going for 2 is a lot more, as Schaefer said, well, he tells the truth sometimes, it's a lot more work. So it's easier to just do 1. But sometimes a twofer can happen. I think if you're talking about like Delphi, was that his first homicide or not? So in reality, we don't know. He seemed like a slightly older fellow. So did he have a history of rapes and maybe sexual homicides, singles, before this? It's very possible. Is it just that in this particular case, he said, oh, look, 2 girls. I like that one. I want that one. Oh, they're friends with her. Okay, well, I'll control her friend. So maybe that he's not planning on a twofer, but he's just, the other one is there. And then you can use the other one to just kill her off quick. It doesn't really matter. I mean, you can just eliminate them. I mean, it's not like, oh my God, I got to kill 2 people instead of 1. That would be wrong. So maybe his eye was on one and not the other. And the other one was just collateral damage. I mean, it's hard to say. So I don't really know. I can't really say that's always true. Yes, I would say singles are probably more likely in general than doubles. Doubles are pretty rare. The California guy, Golden State Killer. He liked going to the 2 because he thought it was a good way to control the one he wanted he went for a couple, husband and wife, and he would keep the husband under control while he tortured and killed his wife. So he had his own. I mean, he was a pretty. There's different kinds of serial killers, and there's really 2 kinds. One is what I call fast, and one is what I call slow. Fast is the ones that just jump out and hit you over the head, rape you, and murder you, and you're dead within 5 minutes. They're usually not real specific in all their details, or huge amounts of planning and all that kind of stuff. Then you get your more sadistic variety. They're the ones that do the more long-term planning. I call them the slow ones because they got the whole plan, and they like to watch, and they like to humiliate. They like to torture. They like the whole thing that goes before the actual rape and murder, or with the rape and murder. And my joke is this. I mean, the fast guy goes, to the slow guy, it's like, you're a sick guy. I mean, I just rape and kill him really quick, but you're really sick to rape and to torture and humiliate them. Why would you do that? And then the slow guy goes, you mean you just raped and murdered them in 5 minutes? What's the fun in that? What a waste. So they have 2 different mindsets. They're both psychopaths, but they have 2 different ways of thinking. Oh, that's so nice. Lisa says, Emily, I read Only the Truth. I loved it. Thank you very much, Lisa. that's one of my favorite things I've ever written, and it's well liked. So it's a wonderful psychological mystery story with a protagonist we can actually love, which is kind of cool. Oh, that's interesting. Good question. Why don't we ever hear about active serial crimes? I can tell you that. Hold on a second. I need something to drink after being. Hey, Christine. Okay. The reason we don't, because we have a number. Oh, it's a complicated thing. One is because of the FBI labeled, you had to have three linked crimes before you could say it was a serial killer. That was a big mistake, because that's ridiculous. Then they went down to 2, and that's a whole story about how I kept arguing for years about this. So they finally lowered it to 2, but then they said something kind of mean about me, and to try to say, oh, she didn't say that. Like, no, my point was, if you have a raped and murdered woman in the bushes, like Sarah, she's walking home. It's not her boyfriend. She's walking home. She gets abducted. She gets raped and brutally murdered. It's a serial killer. You don't need more than one. One is enough. But here's the thing. A, they won't be labeled serial homicides because they don't have links to other homicides. So then it comes down to us, this is maybe just a one-off thing. And we don't want to scare the community by saying there's a serial killer out there. So it's always hushed down so that the community doesn't freak out. And the police have a problem with this, because when you say there's a serial killer, the community does freak out, and then the media freaks out, and then the pressure on the police department is so outrageous that you got to solve this. Women are being murdered right and left, and you got to solve this, and they have so much pressure that they don't. It's a lot to handle, so they prefer not to have that kind of pressure. So if they can keep it under wraps while they're doing the investigations, they feel that they can do their investigation without being swamped with the media and the community going insane. However, the problem with this is, and this is what causes the issue, since it is a stranger homicide, this is a stranger homicide. No, it wasn't somebody she knew. The links weren't there. It wasn't like, did her boyfriend kill her husband? Was she in a drug? Was she abusing drugs? Was it a bad drug deal? There's nothing linking anything to her. So it's a stranger homicide. So the only way you're going to find out who did something to her is, or you can get lucky. I think the police got lucky, because this guy's an idiot, and the CCTV and the phone stuff and everything was so bad, so ridiculously overwhelming, that it doesn't take a rocket scientist and Sherlock Holmes to convict this dude or to arrest him. Oh, dang, it's him. Wow, look at that. That's how bad he was. And get the car in his own name. Really? Okay, so super easy, but that's rare. Most of the time, you just have no idea. It's some guy out there. Some guy. Go back to the Delphi murders. It's some guy. Nobody knows who he is, because the 2 girls, all the conspiracy theory crap on Delphi murders, the 2 girls went for a walk in the park, and they took a video of a creepy dude following them, and it was him who killed them. And now people are saying it could be that they were assassinated by somebody who wanted them out of the way, or a drug deal gone bad. No, there were 2 girls being attacked by this creepy dude. He's a stranger homicide. It's a stranger homicide. So nobody knows who the creepy dude is. So what the police tend to do is try to keep it quiet, not say it's a serial killer, because they won't upset anybody. But the fact is, it is a serial killer, and they should go right away and say, he is a suspected, you don't have to say is, he is a suspected serial killer, because this type of crime is usually committed by serial killers. Here are the traits of serial killers, and this is the traits of a psychopath, which we need to let you all know. We need you to identify. Please, public, only call in with this information. Do you know any guy who could have been in the park that day, who wasn't at work or could have taken a break from work? A person and you start listing the things you know. And maybe there's more information about that crime they should have released that would have helped understand who killed those girls, what the weapon was or something, because that can be useful. Maybe they were stabbed to death with a certain kind of weapon. Let somebody know. Maybe the guy gave it to his friend, the knife to his friend. Maybe the guy was burying something in the backyard. Maybe the guy said, to his wife, throw this knife away. And she's like, I wonder why he said that. Give the information you can to identify the stranger, because you do not know who it is. That is so important. But in doing so, you have to admit you have a suspected serial killer. And that's what the police don't like to admit. And that's what the media will jump on. And that's what everybody goes nuts about. So that's why they often don't say it is a serial killer when they should. And it's unfortunate, because that is one of the ways you solve the crime. So, yeah. That's but a great question. Let me see what else we have here. So many good, actually. Let's see what else we have to. Oh, goodness gracious. I wish I didn't miss all these questions sometimes when or comments when I'm on, but I can't see everything, and it's like. Forever Young says, "Kill and chopped into pieces." Pat's going to get demonetized again. I'm pretty sure I am. It's like, but. And I don't, as I point out, I don't show photos. I could show photos of Gerard Schaefer's, the two girls he tied to trees. That's out there. It's actually a legitimate photo. There's lots of photos I can show. And I would show them to police detectives, but I will not show them on an open YouTube channel because I think it's disrespectful to the victims. And I think it's just unnecessary, and I won't do that. But also will not watch my speech so carefully that I become totally bland and you can't understand what I'm trying to tell you, because I have to start just saying, and then he went down the street and he found a young lady. It's fascinating when you look at Gerard Schaefer. He cannot, so I'll get demonetized for this too, but Gerard Schaefer almost never calls a woman or a girl. Almost every time he says whores and bitches. Almost every time. Because that's the way he views them. And that's a necessary thing to understand, that if you're hanging around somebody and they use those terms a lot with you or with your friends, or just this bitch down the street, and they use that a lot, that's a concerning thing to you might want to pay attention to if you're in a relationship with that person. Wait a minute, what was that question? What? Anna Christine says, "Can you explain what you mean by being a serial killer already at a murder?" I don't understand the question. So if you can explain that one to me, I could maybe answer that, but I don't understand it. Oh, no, not at all. Forever Young, do you think women serial killers are punished more harshly, like Aileen Wuornos? No, not at all. I mean, I think they're way, way down on the punishment thing, because Aileen Wuornos is the one who actually went and shot people. But most serial killers are, like I had the show the other week with the Munchausen syndrome by proxy, as it's called, for female serial killers who kill their own children, nurse killers, all these kind of killers. They usually get less time because people feel sorry for them. They feel like they have self-esteem problems. Remember, I was just talking about myself, as all these people saying, like I have self-esteem problems. They think the women have self-esteem problems, or they, they couldn't help themselves. And you take Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka, which I'll be doing a great video on them sometime. Carla Homolka is a psychopath, and she gave her own sister to her boyfriend at the time to kill. What kind of human being is she? But she claimed she was a domestic abused person by Paul Bernardo, and so she got a very light sentence, and she's out and married and selling like cooking stuff now or something. It's horrifying. So she got away with it. And this was stranger homicides. I mean, Paul Bernardo and Carla Homolka were killing young teenage girls. I mean, she wasn't killing her own children even here. She was killing people out in the neighborhood, and he got the longest sentence he could get, but she just got, Paul just made her do it. So no, they get way less, unfortunately. What is this? When I tell people about Delphi being a serial killer, they think their wacky theory is just as valid as what is 95% likely. Yeah, and this is kind of one of the problems I have with a lot of what's going on YouTube and, generally speaking, blogs and stuff, is the creation of weird. Not everything is a conspiracy theory, but an awful lot of theories are just ridiculous and not based on evidence. So if you're going to come up with something, at least have a logical evidence. Okay, so here Anne's saying back. Okay, can you explain what you mean by being a serial killer after committing a murder? Okay, that's what I was trying to explain. The traditional FBI one was you had to have 3 murders linked, and they had to be linked. You had to absolutely link them, like by DNA or theoretically, like all three were buried under the same tree. They were killed at different times, but they're all buried under the same tree, or they were all behind, in somebody's basement. John Wayne Gacy. I mean, when you dug up his crawl space, it was like, whoa, a lot of dead people here. He's a serial killer, but they wouldn't name people serial killers until they got to 3. I argued that for years, so they dropped it to 2. But again, 2 absolutely linked. My point always is, if you have a completely stranger homicide, which is a sexual homicide, the chances of it being a serial killer are so high that you should use the term suspected serial killer, because you will then approach the investigation differently, because it's a stranger. And I say stranger, but it still could be somebody who works in the building, or it could be somebody who knows them to some extent. But when I say stranger, I mean, it's not an obvious link, like the husband, the boyfriend, the drug dealer, or whatever it is. Prostitute goes out and she gets, no, that usually is, well, that's a John usually, or her own pimp, or something like that. But generally speaking, if you have somebody you can't find any links to, who's been brutally murdered, sexual homicide, especially if they're just off doing something that they shouldn't be getting killed for, she goes to a club at night and she's had drinks with her friends, and it's closing time at 2:00. She walks out of the club alone. She's walking to her car, which is 5 blocks away, and she vanishes. And then her body is found naked, raped, stabbed to death in bushes 10 miles away. What was it? Who do you think did that? Probably a serial killer. So to me, you go right to the public with suspected serial killer. You don't have to say serial killer, suspected serial killer, just because it changes your methodology of how you investigate and how you need the help of the public. You need the help of the public. And so there are weird times when it can turn out to be not a serial killer. It could be actually a boyfriend who off the person made it look like a serial crime. Just like you can have a husband who kills his wife and then makes it look like the place was broken into and a serial killer got her, a rapist of some sort. That can be, it can be staged. But unless you know it's staged or have a really strong feeling it's staged, you might want to go to the public and say suspected. You can even say, we're not sure it's really a serial killer. It's a suspected serial killer, but it's possible it was staged to look like this. You can say what you want, but let's be clear, so that you can get some real useful stuff. He is a serial killer when he's going to be a serial killer. That's a good way of putting it. Yes. Once there's that line, I always talk about the line. Once you step over the line to rape and kill somebody, you're not coming back over. I mean, it's like, I'm bored this weekend. I thought I'd try something different. I think I'm going to rape and kill somebody, but just once, just one time. I'm just going to see what it's like. And then I'm going to step back over. Probably not. Now, I know there's been a few weird, like teenage murders where some girls will say, I killed her because I want to see what it's like to kill somebody. And I've heard boys say that, I want to see what it's like to kill somebody. Well, let me ask you this question. Who wants to find out what it's like to kill somebody? Think about it. I mean, that's pretty steep. Now, teenagers, it's a little weird when they do that. Will they kill again? Usually they get caught, so we don't actually know very much whether they would go on. But I wouldn't be surprised if they go on to kill again, because probably they enjoyed it, because that usually isn't a question in your mind. I wonder if it'd be thrilling to stab somebody to death. Yeah. I went on a vacation to the Bahamas, and that was kind of cool, but I don't want to stab somebody to death. I wonder what that would feel like. Really? I mean, it's just not the way normal people think. Not the way normal people think. Oh, did she get acquitted? Lizzie Borden? I've forgotten about the whole case. She was acquitted, huh? Yeah, there you go. So, it's a lot of women get away with a lot of stuff because people don't understand that women can be just as psychopathic as men. They just have different ways of dealing with psychopathy. They have different methodologies because they are, quote, the weaker sex. And the reality is, generally speaking, they do not have the strength that men have. And so a lot of their methodologies are more manipulative and they have other methods. That's all. They have other methods. And the bigger the person is, they might be more brutal and might have more physical. And we do have the issue of, how men are just different than women, but we have arguments these days about that. But in reality, that's and it's not that women don't commit horrific crimes, because across the world they do, and sometimes they will even in certain countries, honor killings and stuff like that. They'll even want their daughters murdered because they have indeed been dishonorable, and usually they have the brother or the husband kill them. And then in certain places, the mother-in-law is not, doesn't like her daughter-in-law and thinks her daughter-in-law needs to, disappear. So she might throw cooking oil on her and set her on fire. Those things happen. Some really brutal, vicious women around the world in all countries. And so, we like to let women off as being always as sweet and docile, kind, motherly, but they're not all that way. They're not all that way. And so we need to recognize that, because the juries keep giving them way lower sentences. So I have not, who is that? I don't know. I've not heard of that. Bill James. I'm not familiar with Bill James' book. What is it? Give me a heads up on that, because I do not know. Hornets has been executed. How many male serial killers are executed? Well, enough of them. I think she got a lot of publicity because, oh my God, you're killing a woman. That's why she got the publicity. Oh my God, you're killing a woman. So that's a problem there, because people we can't. Ted Bundy, nobody gives a crap if he's executed. But, somehow Aileen Wuornos, because she, again, is a female. And here's what they said. She wouldn't have killed all those men if the men hadn't treated her badly, if she hadn't been turned into a prostitute, blah, blah, blah. As if all women who become prostitutes are only becoming prostitutes because they have no other alternatives in life. And see, this gets very tricky because, and there's that thing again, here and there. On one hand, a lot of women are, what do you want to say? I don't like the word trafficked, because people misuse trafficking these days and think that a lot of women go into prostitution willingly because they want to make money, because they're getting into drugs and they need drug money, because whatever, they're not necessarily trafficked. They may choose to do so. They work at massage parlors and they become prostitutes through massage parlors. They become escorts because that makes a lot of money, and they do that. Then there are girls who run away from home and they become prostitutes because they have no way to earn an income, and they get picked up by, a lot of times they come off the bus, and the pimp or the pimp's friend is there to say, hey, we got a place for you. You don't have to starve to death. So come and stay here and we'll help you make money. That's called trafficking these days. It used to just be called pimps. The type of sex trafficking we always hear about sex trafficking is usually when women are taken across borders, or children are moved across borders, or children are brought into sex trafficking. That doesn't happen much in the U.S., except in a few of the illegal alien issues coming in from the South, and also from China, or some of the Asian countries have. If you know that guy, remember the guy who shot up the women in the Asian massage parlor? All those women were prostitutes, and the women who ran those things were madams, and they toned that all down. And basically what they do is they bring them in from the other country, and they say, we're going to get you this work, and then they take their passports away from them and they force them into slavery, essentially, is force them into prostitution. That's sex trafficking. But in other countries, it happens in a huge scale. In certain countries, little children, 9-year-old girls, 8-year-old girls are kidnapped off the streets and taken into sex slavery. It's really horrific. But the problem is, because that does happen, they put that 100% on any woman who's in prostitution. And somebody like Aileen Wuornos, she may have other issues, and she's a psychopath. I mean, most prostitutes do not shoot all their johns. They don't do it any more than most johns shoot the prostitutes. I mean, most people aren't psychopaths. They may be in unfortunate situations, but they're not killers. Aileen Wuornos was just a killer. And so, but because she was in prostitution, you could say lots of things about how she ended up there in unfortunate circumstances. But, when you look at unfortunate circumstances, it's the same ones that male serial killers use. They grew up, their fathers left their homes. They were sexually assaulted by uncles, their mothers, whatever. And they got that's basically a terrible childhood. And sometimes it's not even deniable. I mean, not all serial killers have terrible childhoods, but some of them do. But some people who have terrible childhoods turn out to be wonderful people and grow up to be doctors and teachers and do wonderful things. So it's true, but it's not always true. And we conflate the two of them, and therefore we can't visualize this in a rational way because we're so adamant on our position or our agenda in order to say, okay, let's look at this clearly. Alien Warnos deserved a death penalty, and so did Ted Bundy. So they were equal in that sense. What is it? I'm not sure what you're saying here. What's the best way to get further info or put gentle pressure on the police? Do you mean in terms of serial homicide type things? Like, how can we encourage a police to do that? I think we have to do it in training. And we need some help from the media because the media sucks these days. And if the media is not willing to be rational and not push things just for ratings, if they would work with the police in a quiet and decent method, that would be really helpful. But we do need training and changing of methodologies. And so that would be the way to do it. Hopefully it will happen. So let me see what else we got here for any statements. This is, how could a delicate, soft woman hack up her own father? Well, I guess it depends how bad daddy was. But, again, the one option that is always interesting to me when we have people defending certain domestic homicides by females is that oftentimes that person was able to leave the situation. I'm not saying a lot of times when people aren't in domestic situations, they don't leave because of the children and because they still feel love for the person. They're manipulated and all that. But when you get to the actual point of wanting to shoot them in their sleep, probably the better choice is to leave the house, get in the car, and drive away. I understand why you want to shoot them in their sleep, but that's still premeditated homicide and probably is something you shouldn't do. And so some women have been convicted of this, and then they've gotten out because people have had sympathy toward their situation. And sometimes it's warranted in the sense that there's enough proof that the person was abusive as heck toward the woman. She lived a miserable life. Then again, there are some times when it's questionable. And is that really still acceptable that because you lived an unhappy married life, you can shoot your partner when he's asleep? So I don't know. Again, it's a question of trying to be rational and not be emotional and trying to figure out what would be the best steps to take to help people and at the same time not be unreasonable about everything. So let me see if any more comments before I close out for today, because I've been here longer than usual. Lizzie Borden, please. I'll put her on the list. I've forgotten about Lizzie Borden, except for the cool little poem. I don't remember much about Lizzie Borden anymore. Okay. Bill James. Here's Bill James. USA is saying Bill James is the baseball statistics guy Moneyball was inspired by. He looked at serial killers. At the time, most were caught when a victim survived. Well, if the victim survived, they're not. Well, they could be serial killers, but that's the victim that got away. I get what you're saying. It's not a serial rapist. It's a serial killer that the victim escaped. Now it's probably DNA. Good point. I'll have to look into that. Bill James, Moneyball. I know Moneyball. Yeah. Yes. And oftentimes it was a prostitute who got away because they can be feistier than some. And so they would have a John who's like killing, he's killed like 4 different prostitutes. And the 5th prostitute, he's driving away and she says, "Oh, hell no." And she's like fighting like a demon. And she jumps out of the car, even though it's still moving. And she survives. And she says, "It was him." And they finally catch the guy. So you're absolutely correct. That's actually very true that it was the victim that got away when they erred in handling their kidnapping or the murder. So yes, actually, it's very true. And it was not unfortunately, it was not very often, so you didn't solve very many. And now it is DNA that is doing people, and as far as getting them convicted. But we need to do better than that, because it's not okay to have somebody go on for 30, 20 years killing people and then say, okay, we got them. It's like, well, yeah, but what about the 30 women who died meanwhile, or the children who were murdered, or the men who were murdered? It's okay to take 20 years. That's not success. And when you say we successfully closed the case, no. You closed the case. How successful it was when it took you 20 years. I mean, think about it. If you had any other business and you took, let's say I want you to come over to my house and I want you to fix my kitchen. But 20 years later, you finally do it. I'm like, oh, for 20 years I've lived in my kitchen and nothing's worked and it's been a disaster. But thank you for showing up 20 years later and fixing it. Yeah. That's not acceptable. And yet we accept it, and we shouldn't. I mean, we need to do a better job. So anyway, I'm going to head out now. Oh, you said nice. Oh, isn't that sweet? Annie says, thanks, Pat. Best part of Sunday. You should have better things to do on Sunday. No, Annie should come here. Absolutely should come here. Oh, badass. I like that. I said that word. See, I'm probably going to get nailed for that. Badass snoot boop boop. I like that. Badass snoot booper. Thanks, Pat. Love your channel. Awesome. And thank you, Martin. Fine. Sunday tradition. Yes. Oh, usually it's church, but okay. Lisa, thank you. Pat, love your shows. Well, I'm going to, one of the reasons I keep doing it, these shows, is because of you guys. I do like people learning stuff, and I like that people actually like to learn stuff, and that's cool. So Emily says, I really appreciate your style and that you're not into sensationalism. I'll be joining Patreon. Thank you. I mean, my real name is Laurie. Thank you. Now you've let it out so everybody knows. But thank you. Yes, again, please do please do subscribe. I'm struggling to, believe me, guys, this channel is not making me rich. I'm just trying to have enough income to support this channel so that when you put in 40 hours a week, you don't have to do some other work. I want to make this my work because I want to teach, and I'm going to start the profiling school on here. And I don't want to, I don't want to lock everything down and make it so that you have to be, you can't see anything. I don't want that to happen. So I do appreciate your support in every way possible. Just so it's enough to keep the channel going. I say I'm not. The other day I'm looking, and this one guy, it's got like 50 billion views or whatever, and it's a duck playing the drums. I'm like, let me get a duck. I got some drums. Let me get a duck. I mean, but there are going to be people out here who are part of the establishment who are going to, they're going to have the big channels, and they're going to be people out who just have fun stuff, which, what can I say? I did like the duck, and it's going to be there. And I'm not going for that. I just want enough to support the channel so that I can keep doing this for you guys. And that's it. I just want to keep doing it. And if it's enough, then it's enough. I mean, I'm not getting rich off of it. It's okay. But I want to keep the channel going. So I do appreciate everything you can do to support the channel. So thank you very much. And bye, Emily, whose real name is, wait a minute. Whose real name is Laurel. Bye. Well, looks like I'll have to push my sister to become friends. There we go. Oh, yes, I did. Yeah. Yes. So some people, oh, I want to mention this just as I'm disappearing. I have people who say, oh my God, can you do this show? And I'm like, I already did that show. So, but people don't realize it, because when you come to the channel, you see some of the videos below, like popular ones and all that. There is a playlist. Click the playlist, and then you hit live shows. Every one of my live shows will be there. Click case files. Every one of the cases will be there. So if you say, well, I didn't know you did Delphi. No. Go to click on the playlist. You'll see Delphi up there. And when I do the school, that'll be up there. And if I do stuff about courts, that'll be up there. I have different playlists, and all you have to do is go to the playlist and look for the stuff that you're interested in, because I'm getting this comment a lot. It's like, I wish you'd do it. I'm like, I just did that like last week. So anyway, Dee Dee asked me again, how do I support your channel? Okay, you must have come in late. Okay, so I will show you the basic ways to support the channel. The basic ways are right in the middle. It's just subscribe to the channel. The more subscribers, the more that YouTube will push things. And even though half of my stuff has been demonetized, I still have some monetized stuff. So the more subscribers, the more they promote the videos, so more people see them. So like things, share with your friends, and also click the bell so you get to know about the other shows. And over here is Patreon. I've got two levels, just two levels. $3 level, which is just thank you for supporting the channel. You just sign up and it supports the channel every month. And at $7, you get to join in my Hangouts every week. And I have some really great friends of Profiling with Pat Brown who support the channel even more with that amount. And so that's a great way. And then over here is just sometimes in the links to links to Amazon. I have things if you click on, it's teeny bit of money comes to the channel. And Only the Truth is a book I wrote, and it's $2.99, and it's a great story, and $2 of that goes to the channel. So those are ways to support the channel, and God knows I appreciate it, because YouTube is making my life difficult. They really are. So Philby says you have to do a sideline with psychopathic cats. It will be a winner. Wait a minute. Okay, guys, since you said that, whoever's still here, hold on one second. Here it is. This is the psychopathic cat, the one that is like out to get me, tries to kill me, and also is pooping on my floor. And is absolutely the worst cat I've ever owned. Bye, cat. His name is Ziggy, and he is like the worst cat ever. And I'm going to live forever with that cat. I'll probably die before him, or he'll kill me. I got cat hair in my mouth. I am going to do Darlie Routier. I don't even know how you pronounce that girl's name. I say Routier because it sounds French, but I will definitely do her. There's no question. She's on the list. I mean, she's been on the list for a long time. It's just hard to get to everything. It really is. It's hard. My list is so long. Oh, are you eligible for channel memberships? I guess I think it's another version of Patreon. I don't want to have too many versions. So I'm doing Patreon, but I'll look into channel memberships, but I don't know. I think that means the same thing as Patreon. That's my guess, but I'll have to look it up. I mean, it's like, I can't seem to keep up with all the different methodologies, and some of them I just won't do. Let's say I won't do the, what's that one called again? During the show, Super Chat. I just won't do it. It just makes me uncomfortable. So there we go. All of you are saying how cute. Yeah. Okay. All of you said that cat's cute. If you'd like that cat, I will send that cat over to you. I'm telling you, if it wasn't such a bad cat, I mean, I've had cats for 30 years, and where is it? I've lost. There it is. Which side is it on? It's this side. The cat that attacked my face and ripped it open. I have still had cats all my life, and I'm like, why do I have these beasts? I mean, but this is actually, most of my cats have been great, and this is just the worst cat ever. But I have never, where is he now? What is he doing to destroy my house? But I have never, ever given an animal away. I've kept all my pets till the day they died in my lap. And so even though I make terrible statements about this cat and call him a psychopath, I will probably keep him forever. So there we go. So anyway, so cat says, I'll trade you, pen. My cat is a little terrorist. He attacks and bites me all day long. Oh my God. I don't know which one of ours is worse. Honest to God. Oh, look at this. Now my thing is going fuzzy wuzzy behind me. Isn't that weird? Okay. Oh, this is interesting. Dee Dee says, Routier sounds sweet like butter would melt in her mouth. At first, I believed her. Then I found out that her bloody footprints were underneath the broken glass, so it didn't match her story. Here's one last thing about that. Once people go to prison, this is their psychopaths. They're very good at learning what they need to learn in order to gain people's attention and people's support. They get along really well with the guards at the prison usually, and then they play the public, and they play them like you wouldn't believe. And And especially people who are bleeding hearts. And some of the nicest people are bleeding hearts, but they're bleeding hearts. I think, oh my God, I think she is innocent. And then they start the support channels and they just play that for all it's worth. And they get better and better by the years because they know what to say. And Bobby Cutts, oh my God, has he got good at saying all the right things. And so it's really, you start feeling really bad. You're like, maybe Bobby Cutts, it was an accident. Maybe maybe the guy just, it was one of those moments in life where you slammed against somebody and they did fall and hurt themselves and die. I mean, it could happen to me. I could get angry one day and I could take that psychopathic cat and I was so pissed and threw it and it accidentally hit the door frame and broke its neck. And now everybody thinks I'm a horrible animal abuser when it's never happened before in my life and I've never done anything like that. So maybe Bobby's telling the truth. You see, that's how they play you. And you have to be sure to pay attention to everything about them, their entire history, their entire psychopathy. Because if you don't do that, they got you. They got you, and they're really good at doing it. So Kat says, I'm here, Pat. I'll probably keep mine too. Oh, what fools we are. What fools. Thank you, Forever Young. I try to do it best I can. So anyway, I will look forward to seeing those at Hangout coming up this week, and we'll have fun as usual. And I do have a plan for next week, but I'm not going to say what it is yet because it depends how much time I have to do the research. So I don't want to screw myself up that way. So anyway, I will see you next time around. I hope that the transmission worked this time because we had lovely trouble with that and it's very frustrating. And so, but I'll see you soon, everybody. Bye.